to with them, and we've got to stop acting like it's not happening. We have an incident that occurs with someone that's involved in warfare or terrorism that happens to be of the Islamic faith, and it is major league up front, and in many cases, as it should be, ground that to the truth. The Chinese, the PRC, has been running concentration camps for the Uyghurs for 50 years. And is harvesting their organs when they tissue type them.
And the Falun Gong are targeted as well.
Right, because their religious beliefs are not in line with the Communist Manifesto. Nary a worry. Nothing to see here, folks. Keep moving on. Get your cheap sneakers, get your cheap electronics, and keep going. And now we find ourselves, now we're getting upset that someone says, well, you know what? If you keep banging on it, I'm not going to give you your drugs. Well, to me, that's a declaration of war. And There's many ways to fight it. And I think the easy way to fight it is you say, fine, stuff it. You can eat those drugs and you hammer them.
Yeah.
But we need to wake up as a group of people. Maybe just a teeny bit more time on this and a little less on The Bachelor and Dancing with the Stars and Voice and all the other great shows that we're supposed to be watching on TV while this is going on.
Don't throw Supernatural in there now. That's
no.
I swear to God, I was about to say the same thing.
No. Amanda, now come on. You've been a guest on my show, and you know I love Supernatural. I'm almost all the way through the 4th season when I can get around animal care and all the other things, flying airplanes and doing that stuff. I love that show.
Yeah, he's
it's not a reality-based show.
He's a fan.
Well, it is. They announced that the Winchesters were getting canceled, so God decided to cancel Earth. And this is the result. This is their last season on planet Earth.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
And they actually, they stopped production of Supernatural, so the Winchesters could go and close whatever hell gate this opened. And
Amanda, quickly, whose shoulders?
Pardon me?
Shoulders.
Who is Shoulders?
Who is Shoulders?
Yes. A real Supernatural fan would know.
I don't know.
I know who Baby is.
I was going to say Sam. He's got some pretty big shoulders.
That's the one. Shoulders.
Okay, well, logically, he's a moose, of course.
And Dean is Pie. Shoulders and Pie.
Sorry. I'm a Crowley girl deep down. It's Squirrel Moose.
Wow.
Have you gotten there, Mark? Mark has finally caved and he's started to watch Supernatural.
Yeah.
And how timely. 2 weeks ago, that episode kind of coincided with what's going on now.
I definitely started to watch. That's correct. And,
how deep are you? How deep are you, Mark?
Do you know who Crowley is yet?
Who?
He knows who Cass is.
Oh, I know who Cass is, yeah.
Do you know who Crowley is yet?
Crowley? No.
Okay, he's in like season 5.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not as deep in it as
he's a good bad guy.
Kind of like Cass. Cass is a good bad guy,
no spoilers for Mark, please. But hey, while everyone's quarantined, go check out wherever Supernatural is being played on
Netflix.
Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Still good.
Yes.
There you go. Gives you something to do. We're in season 15, so by the time you're done, quarantine should be over.
Well, you know the bad news, Amanda.
Uh-oh.
The last 2 episodes of the series, which will tie, I guess, everything up, they've been suspended because of the virus outbreak.
Well, this is exactly the time that people would watch.
Yeah.
No, are they done? I thought production was halted.
No,
That's
still
why we aren't going to see them yet.
Still two episodes to go, and they've gone on hiatus because of the virus shutdown.
Or because the Winchesters are going to stop pencilist.
I think Chuck is playing games, Amanda. That's what I think.
I think so too.
Who's Chuck, Dawn?
No spoilers. Come on.
Well,
who's Chuck?
I can't be
Not
told
everyone's
anyway.
caught up yet.
I can't be told. I don't know.
Who's Amara, Dawn?
Amara, that's our friend's daughter.
Yeah, well, it's a guilty pleasure, and once it gets its hooks in you, you're done. I mean,
I
you're
agree.
just done.
I
know.
thought that I used to watch that show Deployed downrange all the time because it was very big on the Armed Forces Network, and there was a lot of folks that listen via that are in the military. I don't know what so universally, but I always thought the storyline and the moral code in it was very, very high, and super good writing. I thought through the whole thing. I thought the way they did their music was exceptionally well. Is good stuff as well.
The soundtrack to that show is impeccable.
It is. It really.
Although Dean is a big Led Zeppelin fan, and maybe I don't want to open that can of worms, but
Actually, that's one of the things I like most about the show is that whenever you hear these shows come on, they always play Pretender songs. Not of the Pretenders, but I mean songs that are just the mimics that
made
aren't
up for
the
the
real
show,
thing. And it's
Don't
supposed
forget Kansas. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, in Kansas, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And it's the real thing too.
I'll never. That song will always make me tear up forever. That'll always be linked to
Wayward
Supernatural.
Son, which
now.
one?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah. Carry on, Wayward Son.
my wayward son. Come on, let's all sing.
That's right.
Nah, I don't think we could cause
And
a tear
Bon
up.
Jovi.
Except
I even kind of like Bon Jovi.
Good music.
Well, no, I mean they used "Wanted Dead or Alive" in there several times,
yeah.
and that was just the right choice.
Sure. No, I mean the show is exceptionally good. So it would not have been in my list of the reality shows that I was talking about. That it's the bread and circus routine that's on TV, and now we find that people are right here staring this down.
And surprisingly, I kind of got caught up with Picard.
Oh, I
since
have too.
It aired.
Picard is an excellent series about Jean-Luc Picard of Starfleet after he retires, long after he retires. And he meets up with Brent Spiner, who was long since dead Data in the series. He died saving Picard's life in the series. And, of course, there's Jonathan Frakes, number one. And, of course, we have Marina Sirtis, the Beta Z in there. She's in there, too.
There's only one person I was waiting for, Mark,
really?
and she showed up.
Marina?
Seven of nine.
That's right. She's in there, too, yeah.
Oh my God! I
And-
could have met her. I could have met her 20 years ago, and I
Really?
was too nervous. I couldn't do it.
Oh man. Well, besides Marina Sirtis and what's her name there that plays 7 of 9, we also
Jerry Ryan.
There you go, Jerry Ryan. We also have
What's her name? It's
Jerry
Jerry
Ryan,
Ryan.
yes.
Let me hear you say it, Mark. Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan.
There you go.
I won't forget it. Yeah, Jerry Ryan, and she is in there, and she actually plays alongside the character that plays Hugh, the actual character that was the Borg that Picard rescued way back in the Next Gen.
Yes.
Sorry, in the movies, I think one of the movies, and Hugh is in there too, and I thought that was really cool. I love those crossovers, and it's really nice, really really nice. So I thought that the series has some excellent merit to it. You can't keep Picard down. He's got a ship now. He's out there tooling around the galaxy for a specific reason, and that is that Data's long dead, except he isn't really, and that's as much as I'll say for those that haven't seen it. So there.
Yeah, and
I'd like some reaction to the point I brought up earlier about all our canceled conferences, get-togethers, major recognitions that were going to occur this year. Any angst amongst
well,
us?
I never get invited anyway, so I don't care.
Well, actually, I did want to say something before, but it slipped my mind, so thank you for reminding me.
That's why I'm here, Mark.
You're
Please.
the man.
Check me
Thank you. That's Commander for you.
Just trying to be a wingman, Mark. Just trying to be
Well, look, yeah, we all have issues. I mean, I've got books I'd like to sell now at conferences, and the truth is though that the conferences will be around, and if we can't withstand 4 or 5 months of less attention for what we do, then it means we've got another problem, and that is that we just love the attention too much. I can put it away if I have to. I can, none of us are getting rich on the conferences. We are getting out in the public eye, but you know what? No one wants to go to these conferences until they feel confident that they can go and not have to worry about the guy sniffling behind you. So until that comes again, I don't know if I want to be in a conference where the guy in the audience says, I got coronavirus because I went to see Mark D'Antonio talk. I don't want to be associated with that. So I'm quite all right with letting this play out and waiting for this all to go away and waiting for people to get healthy again and wait for this scare to go away, because I think it is a scare. I don't think that it's as... Yes, you look at Italy, you look at the other people. Italy's been hit really hard, okay? I don't know why.
They got it from the Chinese workers, Mark.
Okay, maybe so. I don't know.
That's.
I mean,
rumor.
every country that has a huge relationship with the People's Republic of China has had huge outbreaks.
Yeah, I mean that's true. And so I'm not.
And then they forgot to tell us that this was going on. In fact, they said it wasn't going on, so people were boarding airplanes and going back and forth.
Yeah, they were lying for sure. And I mean, when people say, this just happened, well, it just happened back in 2019. All right, Corona's been out since 2019, lest anyone forget that. And we didn't hear about it until, we've had measures put in place in our state of Connecticut only within the last, week or so. We've started to see measures being enforced. We're not being told we have to stay in. It's not martial law. I think it has to get really bad before that happens, and it hasn't yet. So I just think that there's a lot going on that, we may not know, but I also think that we're not being told everything precisely because of the fact that they don't know everything. They don't know what's going on. Most of the folks have no idea. Most of the people in charge have no idea what's really going on. And it's taking time. It's going to take time. I don't know. It's just. I think we're going to come out of this just fine, and it will actually be a matter of maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks before people start to say, "Well, the worst is over," So we'll see.
I hope you're right.
What are they coming up with this 18-month business?
Well, I think that I heard actually
18 months for a vaccine, right?
Or into July and August
Yeah.
before it alleviates somewhat.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I've been hearing. But I look back on all these other big ones. Swine flu was the big deadly virus celeb back then, and people had to use measures to protect themselves. And everyone says, well, it wasn't like swine flu. Yeah, well, we didn't have a media like we have now back then. We didn't have the internet like we have now back then. Information didn't travel at the speed of the fingers as you type out on a keyboard into Facebook.
Mark, the media we had the ability to move it. The media put somebody into the White House. They were very supportive of the person that was in the White House.
That's right.
That was the big difference back during swine flu. We didn't do anything for 90 days as a country, starting from the White House and the government.
Yeah.
Nothing. We killed, or a lot of people died because we didn't take any extra actions. We go through this every year if we're going to get the flu vaccine and go on that. Yep. What has happened is 50% or 51% of the country put somebody into the White House that the other 49 or 50% didn't like. Mm-hmm. And no one's gotten over it. This is a continuation of that same process going on.
I know that they're using it for that. You're right. As you know, we've heard the old phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Go to waste.
Thank you.
Rahm Emanuel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, I got a question.
Former flamingo dancer.
I like that.
Mark, what do you think of the media now making China to be the world leader now that they're out there helping Italy and trying to send them equipment and everything like that? I mean, they caused this darn thing, and now they're being pumped up by the media as the world leader, taking the forefront of helping people throughout the world.
Oh, yeah, aren't they just so magnanimous? Okay, the bottom line is, okay, that in my view, that whole feature is exactly what I expected from our media. okay? Because our media has systematically done everything against life, liberty, and the American way, if you want to put it that way. All right? I think they want to be communist. I really do. I think they somehow think that that's going to, I think that's probably the kind of thing that they're coming on board for, just to be able to slam anyone that says this. Now, had we had a president, for instance, that was more on the media side, well, they would have recommended him for another Nobel Prize right now for the efforts that he, of course, has been making. Every little thing they would just fall all over him about and say, "Oh, what a wonderful thing! Wow," So I don't know. I just think that it's kind of crazy.
I'd like to find out who actually owns some of these media stations. I mean, the big corporations, who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes, who's saying this is the type of propaganda we're going to put out, rather than giving the real truth. I mean, there's got to be people that are saying, this is how you're going to play this. This is what you're going to do. But you never hear their names.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Did somebody say Satan? No, I'm just hearing things.
Oh.
That's right. Remember, was it, what's his name? He said that. Oh gosh, church lady.
Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey. That's right. Oh, I don't know. Was it maybe Satan? Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting dynamic that you bring up, Robert. I'm sure we'll probably pick it up on your show. There isn't a lot of talk about this, and it's had a wonderful effect. Churches are closed. Religious services have come to a complete screeching halt.
I heard here from some of the workers over at my place, they're doing virtual churches on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on online, and there's been, I think a lot of support for that. A lot of good stuff going on with the streaming.
Yeah.
But
not
you don't hear anybody turning to that. You don't hear any kind of discussion on that because it's we're past that. We're not going to be that nation.
Yeah. Well, at least a lot of people are going to boost their immune system. Probably for the first time in their life, they're thinking about proper nutrition, maybe meditation, or whatever gets them to calm down.
Yeah. That's
tequila.
True.
Say again.
Tequila
and tequila. I'm hearing things.
No, you're not hearing things. You said proper nutrition. I've been drinking tequila here, so I thought.
Yes. Well, cheers, brother.
I mean, if Don can drink, I said, well, I might as well go to the bar and pick up something right there.
Yeah, sure.
A little RX.
And all the drinks are on the house tonight.
Ginger ale.
That's right.
Here.
Because you're in your own house, as it were.
Yeah, we knew where you were going, Robert.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna roll into that.
Yeah.
Sir Decker.
Yes.
I believe you have a call, sir.
You sure about that? By God, you are correct.
Just trying to be your wingman.
I was watching it. I was watching
to be your wingman.
Just trying to be your wingman. Okay, you're a good one. This is our Marianne from Arizona. How you doing?
I am wonderful, Don. How are you?
I'm doing okay. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to thank you guys for basically this roundtable you guys are doing tonight. It's awesome. We're dealing, of course, in Arizona with the virus. We haven't been on lockdown like, of course, New York. Hi, Chris.
The virus is scared of you.
They better be. I'll tase them.
Or California. Don't forget us.
That's true. California. At least you're able to at least go get groceries if it's needed. But I thank you guys for doing this. Like you guys all been praising the truckers, which are amazing. First responders, the doctors, the nurses at the hospitals, because they're kind of stuck inside with them more than I am on patrol. But I do appreciate you guys doing this and talking about it. Hopefully, maybe another month, and things can slow down a little bit.
I think so.
Do you think, Marianne, there's going to be any changes long term? Do you think there's going to be a difference? Do you think we're going to just forget about this when it clears, or do you think we're going to make some changes? You're on the front lines. I'm curious from your position what you think is going to be different.
I think one of the things that needs to be different is, matter of fact, I just went shopping today at the stores and a whole bunch of stuff is gone. And it just doesn't make sense on some of the things that people are hoarding. I'm hoping this changes people's minds, as in they need to have at least, be prepared. Be at least 6 months out prepared in your house, whether it's toilet paper, whether it's paper towels, whether it's food. You can get dry food. I know people that have a year's supply. I think that is very important.
Those people like you.
I'm on. Yeah. And like I'm good. I buy little things here and there. You know, my weekly shopping. I'm a little upset that that has to change a little bit. But first of all, I wish people would quit hoarding stuff that the elderly needs. The elderly needs to be number one. That's how I feel. How the laws are going to change, I don't think anything on that front. I mean, look, when we had the gas issue, the gas prices and the shortage of gas, that was a big thing for a while, and then it slowed down. I think it's the N1. Is it the N1H1?
H1N1.
Yep.
It was H1N1. Yeah.
Yeah, that was swine.
And right, and that kind of went down. Is it because it's a political year that this is just kind of elevated? I don't know. But changes in the laws and changes overall, probably not. I think this is going to we're going to get a vaccine. Everybody's going to get back to normal. But I just wish people would just think about this, that I'll tell you right now, maybe in about 2 or 3 years, something else is going to happen. Let's all be prepared in their homes that if they do get stuck for 14 days, they don't have to run out and hoard everything. Everybody will be in the same boat and everybody will have enough, whatever they need, whether it's food, whether it's paper products or what, is what I would recommend. So that's my 2 cents.
Great call.
I actually found some hand sanitizer yesterday at the liquor store. And
That's called bourbon.
You know, my wife,
Everclear.
my wife made our own sanitizer.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have some alcohol, 61%. I'm talking about,
Ooh.
you know, what the hell?
Isopropyl.
Isopropyl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's the
a
kind.
little dish soap, just a dab, a cup of water, put it in a squirt bottle, and it works pretty well.
Yep.
Excellent. But another little trick, if anybody, listeners are listening, is Amazon has been great. Stuff that I can't find at Walmart, I've been getting on Amazon, and it's here within just a couple of days.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, some places they're not delivering unless it's what did they say, medical supplies or something urgent. Amazon has had to limit because the warehouses, they're worried about their workers.
I was out shopping with my wife just yesterday, and one of the things we forgot to get were coffee filters. And I just ordered some from Amazon. I'm a Prime member, and it's going to be here in a couple of days. So
Good. That's great.
that's very good.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can also cut up paper towels to use as coffee filters if you need it, if it got to that point. So we can all make things out of, like you making your own sanitizer, which is so awesome. That's fantastic. Well, guys, thank you again. I just need to call in and thank you. I appreciate you being on here, and I love all of you guys' shows on KGRA. On their nights you guys are on. So thank you very much, and you guys all be safe.
Thank you.
Bye, Marianne.
Well,
Love you.
Marianne, have a
Bye.
great weekend. Thank you.
I
Stay
shall.
safe.
Okay. All right. Well, we got 6 minutes. I guess we still have time to take another call if you're so inclined. 855-472-5483. Then we will be slipping over to Unicus Radio with Mr. Robert Stanley. And the gang will all be there too, except Robert will be cracking the whip.
Yeah, I'm
Talking
I'm a
about a
couple
Satan
sheets-
reference right
Yeah,
there.
I'm a couple
Cracking
sheets to the wind, guys. So I don't expect a whole lot. I'll do my absolute best because the floor
Does
is
anybody-
moving right now.
Does anybody know what that expression, sheets the wind, comes from? He's
Sailing.
It's a naval thing, and I don't mean your belly button.
Wow.
Whoa,
I thought
look
you were
at
meant like
that.
an orange, like a naval orange.
Anyway, I'm just being super silly. This guys don't pay attention to me.
It's okay. You're allowed to tap into the fun part every now and then.
I thought that was what the show was all about, but you guys
It
really
is.
tricked me.
Well, I didn't trick you.
But you should have heard it. Well, you did hear us the other day.
I was in on the call.
He was
What do you
with
think
there
I'm
with us.
doing
He was
here?
there with us. When,
That,
I think when Commander Cobra and I
for-
talked about doing this, I think
Yeah.
you were here listening, right?
yeah, the audience, if the audience could only, what we're referring to is we had a kind of a get-together call about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. If that could have been taped, you would be buying it right now.
And Don was having
downloading.
a moving
And Don,
moment.
and Don is sharing with us bodily function. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was very polite.
I didn't say you weren't. Why the defense? Why all defensive? All I was going to say it was something that, I mean, Sinatra and the Rat Pack.
I used the
We
term
rivaled them.
abolution.
He
I
did.
was in the middle of an abolution when the phone rang.
Did you really want to talk about that now?
Well, he brought it up.
I guess
He
so.
speaks fluent excremento, Mark, so you don't
Oh, this is
hold
terrible.
it against him.
That's terrible, but okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm
get it.
sorry, but it's don't worry. I will sober up tomorrow.
Oh, by the way, we're going to be doing this again tomorrow on Task Force Griffin. Is that correct, Commander?
That is correct. We're going to rip through 2 hours and a little bit as we go into Mark's show, and try to bring some information and drive this in.
And then
and all are
Mark's going to
welcome.
throw us the hell out.
No,
And Mark's gonna
I
toss
have
us.
I have a guest at 8:30. I have Ket Torvaldsson from Norway who's joining me. She's staying up really late just to be able to be on the show. You guys know that Ket and I spoke throughout Norway in the summer, and we do the New Sciences tour, newsciences.com. We talk about all the stuff where science fails, basically, and she's writing a book on cosmology, so it's kind of a good banter that we have between us. Of course, she's also a Nordic, so I guess that is a very important thing, too.
Right, that helps.
Well, we got a question from Blue Orb in the chat lounge.
Ah, yes,
Uh,
Charles.
Yes. What will be the change after we count the cost and the dead? Will you trust your neighbor? That's kind of dark there, Orb.
Charles is like that sometimes, but you know what? I can tell you, in my view, when we count the dead in the end, we're going to say, not as many as we thought. I'm feeling that is going to be true. Because
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't think that this is, I don't think this is what it's being portrayed as. Commander has an idea about the engineered virus type of approach, and I can't say he's wrong. I don't know. None of us do. So I reserve the right to side with him.
No, I think you're completely correct, Mark. My premise that engineered and this is just a response. This is an attack coming back. It's perfect Sun Tzu. They're not exerting a lot of energy on this because they don't have a lot of energy to exert.
Yeah.
50 seconds. 50
But I'm
seconds.
telling you, I think you're absolutely correct that the body count, and I pray to God I'm correct that you are as well, is going to be a lot lower. But if we ever look at what the flu and everything else is, it's going to be much higher.
That's right. The regular flu will do that as well.
Well, gang, that pretty much wraps it up for this edition of Dark Matters Radio. I want to thank Mark D'Antonio, Amanda Curran. I want to thank Robert Stanley, Chris DiPerno. I want to thank Commander Cobra. And we are going to move this party directly into Unicus Radio with Mr. Robert Stanley immediately following the break. So, in the meantime, keep your eyes pointed up, your ear to the ground. DMR will be back next Friday. Micah Hanks will be my guest.
Nice.
And that's it for tonight. So we'll see you then.
Clear. All right, I've got to do Race and the Wise Man. I will call you all back on this group call when I'm done with that show. So approximately 1 hour from now, I'll call you all back.
All right.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
And when you
All
do,
right.
Thanks, Bill.
I will
Thanks,
be on.
everybody. Bye, guys.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Okay, gang. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Hey guys,
Thanks
we'll
for
talk
your
to
See
you
you
in
in
an
my
hour.
place.
See you in an hour.
All right, guys. I'm sticking around for those listening on my chat because I'm continuing to stream. So here we are. Now, I don't know if Amanda wants to join us or not. I haven't checked in with her on that. I actually asked her. So anyway, I'm here, guys, and let me just start up some of the music, get us going here. I'm trying to show you now. I can talk, which is nice. I couldn't talk before to you directly, but now that you guys are here and listening, what we're looking at here, the spectrum, it breaks the nebula up into its components, and one of the things that we see is, especially with this, because we're not using what's called a slit spectrograph, we're just using diffraction grating, which is in one of the circular wells that holds these filters, and it's going to show us the spectrum. And when it breaks this up like this, you can see now we have a tremendous capability now that's far more in advance. And what we'll do is when we actually do a time exposure and we then let the telescope stop tracking, it's going to drag this out horizontally. So let's go do that. All right, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So now we see where this is now. I'm going to move it a little bit to the west here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn off the tracking, and then we're going to do another 25-second exposure. Actually, we don't need 25 seconds. I'm going to do 20 seconds. I'll do 15 seconds. Okay, and now when I do this, you're going to actually see a very big difference. You're going to see this thing dragged out. Now, some of the spectra are going to be side by side, and you'll have to, and they'll overlap a little bit. So bear with me on that. It's just a matter of tuning it, but I just want to get this straight for you first. So here we go. I'm going to turn off the track, and you'll immediately notice that it starts to drift. Now what you're seeing that's the auto guiding system saying, hey, something's wrong, and it's trying to bring it back. But I'm going to actually just take this exposure now, and it's going to be taking this 15-second exposure that's going to be then showing up in our view here in a few seconds. So let me just take us out of here and out of here. I'm just doing something here, and I'm going to bring up the best part of everything, and that is this music here coming up. So 1 second, and we will have music too. There we go. Now we have some music playing in the background. And as we come back in to our view here, now you can see the dragged out spectrum. I knew, as I told you, the nebula was going to have some overlapping in it, but you see some of the bright stars, and you can actually see their spectra. And I'm going to get the alignments better so this is more straight, but that's not a problem because the program I use to analyze the spectra actually can straighten this out. Now, as it goes from red to blue here, these lines are not the spectral lines. Those lines are actually the grading. We're looking for lines that are going this way, left to right, okay, or right to left, so to speak. And when I show you that on a star where it actually is pretty visible, then you'll understand what I mean. This is a really complex photo. There's a lot going on in here, so it's hard to see what's going on. But I will try to make that all clear to you in a little bit. Let's see here. Okay, hey Bobby Burgess, good to see you. Genghis, nice to see you. David Schmidt, Charles is here. Ronald is here. Who the heck is SkyTour LiveStream? He's here. Tara, hopefully she's still here. Marianne may or may not be here. She may have gone to bed already, possibly. It's 7 o'clock out there. Yeah, she's still up. Let's see. Daisy and Zoe were here earlier. Starseed's here. Tim F, of course. I'm really glad that you guys chose to come out. I apologize for the first part of this where I actually had a problem with the remote system, and I had to fix it. And fixing it was something I could do remotely. I didn't have to go out to the observatory to do it, as it turned out. I'm very happy about that, because if this happens when I'm out in Arizona and I'm up here in Connecticut operating this, that'd be kind of a problem. So anyway, so this is the spectrum of the Orion Nebula region, and it's dragged out like this, and we can actually come back now, and what I'm going to do is change. I'm going to move us over a little bit, move us westward a little bit. Okay, and as I move west, you'll see we're in the spectrum, remember? So now, here's the Orion Nebula stars here. There's the trapezium right here, and you can see its stars. And if we zoom in on this, let me just show you that. You can see, hold on. Okay, now let me bring us back. Still waiting for it. I gotta set us back into tracking mode too. So, okay, here we go. Now we're back tracking, and as we move up, now you'll see these. Let me bring these stars up just to show you. Okay, these are the trapezium stars right here, down here, and this is the spectra of the trapezium stars that you're looking at right there. Now, coupled with, now Orion's pretty low in the sky right now. Let me just show you where it is, so you can see. And I'll come out of this for a sec. All right, so Orion right now is down here. All right, and if we look at our altitude, we're looking at only about 22 degrees above the horizon right now. So that's why it's bouncing, and that's why the spectra aren't as clear as it could be. But we have seen and heard about how Betelgeuse has been, dimming. It's now brightening again. But I think maybe it's time we should go check out Betelgeuse, wouldn't you say? And then we'll come back. But first of all, let me do this. Let me take my filter wheel and rotate around. Okay, this view is a view, a true color view right now. So there's nothing in the way right now of the telescope. It's got a clear through shot. So why don't we take a photo of the Orion Nebula, clear through, 15 seconds at 10,000, and see what it actually looks like in real color, true color. Usually I modify the color for you. I change the color to what it looks like, what it should look like. And I don't have to do that now. This is going to give us a true color rendition here in just a second. So here's where it'll look like it's supposed to you. Okay, and that's more like it looks. Okay, you'll also notice that there is this haze here. Well, this haze is, of course, due to sky glow. And you can see that even with sky glow, my area is not that bad. But this sky glow is really terrible as compared to, say, this shot, right, where the sky glow isn't there, but you got a blue cast, which is caused by the filter, as opposed to this shot, where the bands of light coming in are isolated and restricted to specific ones, the H alpha, which are these, the oxygen 3, which are those, and the sulfur, which are the blue color that the hydrogen beta that you can't see, which is the blue color, and the sulfur 2, the ionized sulfur, which you can't see but is down in the red end. So we have 4 bands that we're looking at here. The H beta, the sulfur 2, hydrogen alpha, and oxygen 3. And this is what this filter does. It's like a narrow slot letting only those through, which is why it looks this way. This one is slightly more broad and allows us to see a little bit more. But what you see is you couple photos like this with photos like this. These photos give detail, intricate detail, of details that you just can't see otherwise. And then we bring this guy along with about 20 others like it and add several of these together with it. We don't ever add, the spectra settings. We don't ever add the spectra to it. But what you're seeing now. This is exactly the kind of thing that I have been aiming for with SkyTour LiveStream, to be able to add a little more science to the mix, a little bit more to try and get you to see a little better what we're trying to show here. And this is a really good way. Now, I said we're going to try to go to Betelgeuse, so I'm going to go up to Betelgeuse now. Okay, and here we go. And you'll see the Orion Nebula go zipping away as we hit up to Betelgeuse. Yeah, I wonder what that star is. And that, of course, is Betelgeuse. And those of you who know what's been going on with Betelgeuse know that it's actually been brightening lately, and that's what we see. And we think that maybe it has been a situation where Betelgeuse actually had a outburst, and it's a very big red giant, supergiant, and its orbit, its size, its diameter puts it out literally almost to the diameter of Jupiter's orbit. So it's really, really big. Couple that with the fact that Betelgeuse also has another thing that's happening. Okay, it's letting its outer layers slip away, and the reason for that is because it is actually those outer layers are so far from the center of the star that these outer layers can actually just with a very, very subtle push can leave the star. And that's what happens sometimes. And there was particularly, what they think is there was a particularly energetic burst which made a big bubble on the outside of the star of material that was pushed off in a massive flare. And it seems that maybe that caused the problem. Let's do 15 seconds at 10,000. And again, we're on filter number 5, which is a straight through shot. So this will be 15 seconds at 10,000. And we'll see Betelgeuse in its true color. Then we'll do a spectrum of Betelgeuse to see if we can notice anything different. With the other stars you saw, there was a lot of blue, a lot of the orange and yellow and green and red. Okay, but this is Betelgeuse in its actual color. I can see that we need to just do a little focus adjustment, and I will do that. As the temperature has dropped out there, the focus does change. But notice that color. It's a beautiful orange. And this is what Betelgeuse really looks like. Okay? So let's go back now to here. And now I'm going to bring up the focus. I actually want to focus on a smaller star. So what I'm going to do is take a star that we could use for that and bring it into the view. All right, so here we go. And let's head this way. And there's my star that I'm going to use for focus right there. Okay, so now, again, we're in our straight through view. And I'm now going to just run the focus system here. No, it wasn't. I just did something silly. I actually accidentally hit the filter wheel. My apologies. So let me hit this now. Here's the focus. We're hitting that, and you'll notice the star's getting bigger. That donut shape you see, that's actually characteristic of the Schmidt-Cassegrain systems, where there's a secondary obstruction, a secondary mirror that's in the middle of a piece of glass at the end of the telescope. And if you go and make the image out of focus, it'll make a big donut, which is kind of cool. In fact, that big donut is the reason that they had strange images on one of the STS missions, shuttle missions, and they actually saw these large objects that looked like they were going behind the tether. That's the famous tether incident. Let's do another 15-second exposure here, and we will check this out. So my question for everybody, can you all hear me just fine? I'm hoping you can. if I need to be louder, I can be louder, but you tell me, is this better? Is this worse? Okay. And I think we're getting there. Our focus still needs to be critically focused. Oh, thank you, Tara. A little bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come down here and bring in another star that I'm going to use for focus. And I'll bring that in right now. You'll see it coming in from... It's going to come up from the bottom. There it is. And I'm going to move over to it. Okay. Telescope catches up to it, locks on. Okay, ka-ting, there it is. And now let's see if we can extract any more focal value here. Here we go. Okay, let's check that out. So now we're gonna head westward, bring Betelgeuse back in right now. So Betelgeuse will be joining us in a moment. Here it is. And we'll come down here. For those that haven't been here before, hey Dee Dee, nice to see you. Righteous, nice to see you. For those that haven't been here before, this side here shows you the telescope controls. This is me in the control complex, my office basically. And this over here is the camera controls. This is our new blue cam out in the dome. That camera out there is actually quite nice because we have the ability to actually move this camera around. We can actually take this camera and tell it to, hey, look up a little more, what's going on up there, in the sky. We can look around with it in a little bit better way to help keep us apprised of what's going on in the dome. We can also use it to look at the controller here in the middle and see what's on the screen of the controller. So that's kind of cool as well. Hey there, Keith. What's going on? Did you want to come on, Keith? You can come on if you like. Just let me know. It sounds like you need a break, man. It sounds like you need a break. Oh, jeez. Holy cow. Boy, that's pretty real, man. Jeez. A guy pulled a gun and put it to the security guard's head and pulled the trigger. Well, I thought you said the security guard had to shoot someone dead. Okay, gotcha. Didn't go off. Well, there you go. I mean, that's what happens, These people, I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea what they're doing. Jeez. Yeah, I don't even know if this was virus related or not. Maybe it was people being crazy and sent into a madness. But I have no idea. But thanks for throwing that at us. I'm gonna do another 15 seconds here at 10,000. That's really kind of tragic, But if the security guard had been killed, a guy who's basically just getting paid a minimum wage or a little more maybe, and then all of a sudden you look at that crap and you see, oh, that focus is much better. That people are now at least it's a bad guy that got killed. I hate to say it that way, but anyway, okay. So here is the region around Betelgeuse in true color. No, my cough is not corona. But let me go back and let's change filters. I'd like to bring us into a whole nother filter category here. This is regular, and I said we're gonna do spectra. Okay, this is narrow band. This is slightly wider than narrow band. That's why it's a little brighter. And let's see. Now we'll see the spectrum of Betelgeuse here. Okay. So what we do now is we're going to do 15 seconds. We're going to turn off the tracking. I'm going to move it a little bit westward. Turn off the tracking. And then we're going to take the photo for 15 seconds. And we'll see our auto tracker try to correct here in a moment, I think. Okay, good. Didn't. So now we go. Take our 15 seconds and then come back. All right. So it'll be back here in a moment. And when it comes back, we are going to, here it is, it's back. So we're going to track again. Turn on the tracking. Let's go see Betelgeuse. Oh yeah. Look at how fat that red is. That red area of Betelgeuse, that red spectrum of Betelgeuse. It is huge because Betelgeuse has a spectrum that's mostly the red. And you can see it right there, you know. So that's pretty impressive. Very impressive. Impressive. Most impressive. But you are not a Jedi yet. Remember that? Look at that. And when we get this officially running even better, we're going to actually have it set up so that we can do a lot better examination of the lines, because we have to actually rotate this a little bit more, which isn't a big deal. Ready, cool. All right. Oh, yeah, David, you're talking about the red. Well, in the spectrum, when we looked at the Orion Nebula, when we go back and check out the Orion spectrum, we're looking at this. This is the Orion spectrum, but let me grab the singular spectrum. Okay, so here we look at this, we can see where you can see some of the hydrogen 2 regions. Okay, the blue here is specifically the oxygen 3 in the nebula. So blue is the oxygen, red is hydrogen alpha. All right, and there's a mixture here. There's a predominant color that comes out, but the mixture is pretty clear. And you'll notice because we're not using something called a slit spectrograph, we don't get to see just a little, like what's called an emission line of this oxygen 3. We just see the broad ghostly shape of the nebula. But don't worry, I am working on getting a slit spectrograph as well, so that we will be able to do not just visual, beautiful stuff like this, but we'll also be able to do some unbelievable real science with all of you. You know, we can do science with this, but it's just a matter of how much we can do. One thing you'll notice is that when we look at certain stars, they're based on their stellar type. We'll see more red in their spectrum. With other stars, we'll see more blue. And some stars actually, believe it or not, and we can't see the ultraviolet, but one star, some of these stars that we know of, will actually, they'll actually give off most of their radiation in the blue end of the spectrum, and have a very, very little, have very, very little, you know, in the red, orange, and yellow and green arena, and it'll be mostly just down here in this blue end of the spectrum. And most of their energy is coming from down here in the ultraviolet that you can't see. And those are very, very hot stars. O-type stars are like that in some ways, okay? But they all have a spectrum, but it's just the intensity of certain amounts of radiation, okay? The most intense part of a spectrum will correspond to the maximum wavelength being given off by that star. So when we look at Betelgeuse, okay, we'll see how bright the red is here. It's pretty red, okay? You'll notice how little blue there is, all right? The yellow and the green are strong enough, but we're looking at red, and that red actually, the red actually goes down more than we're seeing here, okay? There's more to it. And so we have to consider that that's how this works. I should have, when I put Betelgeuse in there, I should have actually moved it a little bit down so that we could see the full extent. But maybe I can do that because I can. Right, let's try that, shall we? So let's go over here, and this is Betelgeuse, and I'm going to now take Betelgeuse and move it over. Isn't that pretty, though? You'll notice the yellow end of the spectrum here is brighter than the blue by far. You notice that? So the color is shifted toward the red end of this spectrum. Hey, Fantasy Ecstasy, what's going on? Nice to see you here. So it's amazing, how this works. So, that said, let me just move us to a different filter here. Okay, we're coming off that, and now this is the broader narrowband, and this is the tight narrowband. Stars, when you take pictures of stars with this really tight narrowband, they're much smaller because you're only letting in certain frequencies. So let's do 20 seconds, 25 seconds for at 10,000 ISO here, and let's bring Betelgeuse a little bit toward the east. Sorry, I didn't want to do that. I want to move it to the west. Okay, there we go. And now we'll take a picture of it, let it lock on. Lock on, dink. There we go. Bright red emission, actually, a bright red emission line can be hydrogen alpha. But, depending on your chemical analysis and your chemistry background, you can also say, and rightly so, well, strontium is also very, very bright red. If you ever burn strontium in a Bunsen burner flame, you can actually see it burns really bright red. Sodium burns what color? Some of you said it out there. I heard it. Yellow. Yes, that's right. So now we're going to just get a narrow band view here of Betelgeuse. So this is narrow band view of Betelgeuse. Look at that. All right. So we're seeing the stars are very small and very, very compact because we're only looking at the hydrogen beta, the sulfur, the hydrogen alpha, and the oxygen 3 that's in the atmospheres of these stars. If they don't give this off, we wouldn't see it. Okay, luckily most stars do. Now if we go back to our original view here and we bring up our filter, and now we come back to change to the next filter. This one is more of a broad narrow band filter. It's a wider narrow band. So this brings us more information around Betelgeuse. And it's actually a really cool thing for us to do here. So in just a few seconds, we'll actually see that come up, and we'll be able to look and compare the two to each other, and look at the stars. Okay, here's the stars of this one. Okay, let me just make it. Here's the stars of this one. Okay, kids, and these are the stars here. And now let's compare that to another view from the narrowband. Look at that. So narrowband, you say, well, look, that doesn't show nearly as many stars as this one. Let's look at this one all the time. This is the one that we use for a lot of the nebulas, but when we want to see the detail in a nebula and actually pull that nebula detail out directly, this is the filter we use. And I shudder to tell you what I paid for this filter. But this filter, just this piece of glass, was over $1,000 to do what you're seeing here. And you'll say, well, why are you showing you're showing less stars. Shouldn't you want more? Yes, you always want more stars. But if you want the most, then you're going to go with one of these filters, which is no filter. So this is just a straight through view that we took moments ago. This one is a narrowband filter. It's called the UHCS filter. This one is the narrowband filter. This one is the narrowband filter that will show us the detail. This is the one, for instance, when we take pictures on a moonlit night, full moonlit night, when the moon is near the Orion Nebula, we can still take pictures that are going to look just like this, all right, of the Orion Nebula. And that's because of the fact that we're going to use a filter that's going to virtually ignore the moonlight. And that's what this filter is really good at as well. Now, you know about the LED lights, right? Well, the LED lights that people use for street lights now throw up all this light into the sky, this extraneous light. And this narrowband filter takes care of it. The blue haze in the background here, part of it is the filter, but the reason you see it at all is because of the LED lights. And that's part of the problem. Yes, David, the filters are coated with material that only pass through certain wavelengths of light. I did let's see, what was it? I think it was for NASA's Unexplained Files. They also had me, with my visual effects shop, they had me do some science demonstrations for them, they called them. And one of them was how spectra work. And I actually showed with colored liquids in big gallon jugs. I had these colored liquids, and I showed with a spectrum of each of these liquids. I showed them how the liquids had these predominant spectra based on their color. And in other words, their wavelength of output. The color that was predominant is the color that would come through on the spectrum, because that's the color being passed through, even though the light behind it had red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet in it. Remember, we called that Roy G. Biv as kids, right? Well, even though it had that in it, what we didn't have was the ability to separate that light out. But the liquid, if the liquid was a liquid that actually absorbed all the other wavelengths and let that other wavelength out that you wanted, then you'd get only that color to come through. Hey, Rockstar. So that's how the filters work, you know. So this filter here that we used just a few minutes ago, this one made the filter, the thickness of the line coming through was very thin. Only a small amount was coming through, all right, of the 4 different elements in the periodic table that we find in stars' atmospheres, okay? And once again, that's hydrogen beta. It's one particular transition of the hydrogen molecule. Sulfur 2, which is ionized sulfur. Hydrogen alpha, which is singly ionized hydrogen, known as H2. And then oxygen 3, which is doubly ionized oxygen. So what we're seeing here are stars whose atmospheres have all of that in it. Betelgeuse is one of them, okay, clearly. So that's pretty cool. So now let's see if we can go back and do a few things. I know that I told you that, we're having some fun. I was actually going to stop this stream at 10 o'clock, but because of the problem we had, I don't want to do that to you. I want to keep going as long as I can. I think I'll have to stop at 11 though, because I'm going back on the air, and I might have to close down. I hope I don't. Maybe I won't have to. But I know that we have a spring sky coming up, and we're up on Betelgeuse now. I can show you something. Maybe this will be interesting. Maybe I can show you in the Rosette Nebula. If we go there, so watch Betelgeuse disappear here. Ready, Betelgeuse? Go away! I did a magic trick, guys. Look at that. All right, and so, and I'm going to tell you how the telescope works too. You'll see that when we go to have Betelgeuse go somewhere, we have this telescope go somewhere, we notice that the telescope doesn't go right to that object, does it? It goes to this object, and it's going to center this object, okay? It's going to bring this object into the view, all right, which we see here, and then of course it's gone, and it's like, well, what is it doing? This is confusing. What's it actually doing? Well, what it's actually doing is it's going to a known object. This is called high precision pointing. It goes to a known object, and from that known object, which it can identify, it knows that it can go a certain distance in a certain way and get to this object. And that's just what we had here. So now where we are is at the Rosette Nebula, and if we look in here, okay, at the Rosette Nebula in our planetarium, Then we come over here, we see that this is the core of the Rosette Nebula, which you can't really tell until I do this. Hold on. Yeah, okay, hold on. I just gotta make this bring it over for you so you can see it. All right. I mean, you see it, but I'm trying to make it a little better. All right, just a minute. We go here and there. Okay. So now we see the Rosette Nebula cluster at the center of the rosette, and it goes like this. So now we're gonna see this in the different nebula filters that you'll see now. So we'll put the cluster down here, and up here, you know, there's in the rosette, there's these dark lanes and beautiful red hydrogen alpha, and let's go check that out. But to do that, we first want to go. Let's go with the filter we've used before, which is the somewhat narrow band filter. It's not the highest narrow band, but it's pretty good, and we're going to go up to 25,600. No, actually, let's go to we'll go to 32,000 ASA. Okay, that's about the highest we want to go, and we're at 25 seconds, and here we go. So let's go check this out and see what we get. There we are. Just trying to move stuff that's in my way, namely my headlamp was slipping down. So after 25 seconds, we'll actually see the results of the first filter, which is the one we use traditionally, which is a beautiful filter to get rid of some of the stuff we see that we don't like. Okay, so here's the cluster, and here is the nebula. You can see the whole nebula here. It's really nice. You see a particular area here, some dark lanes in here, and let's now go and immediately actually, let's just do this. Let's go back over, and this was filter 1. Let's now go to filter 2. Okay, so now the wheel is spinning inside the telescope to filter 2, and we come back here, and let's just take another one for the same amount of time at the same settings to see the difference. Now, when you use a narrowband filter, you should either up the time you're going to expose for, which is typically what you do, or up the exposure ISO sensitivity. What we're going to do is actually look at the difference. You'll see that this one's going to be maybe darker with less stars in it visible, or less detail visible. But no, I'm wrong, because I was telling you the wrong filter. Okay, this was the narrowband filter, the special narrowband filter, and this is without the narrowband filter. So I know it's brighter, I know you see more stars, but like I said, the detail that you get in this is less. And I could show you that with stuff that I've imaged. I actually imaged the entire rosette like this earlier, and when I put them all together, I stacked about 10 of these, 12 of these, and I had a rosette nebula that I had never seen before. And that was actually using none of these. I used none of these regular shots here. I used all the narrowband stuff here. So really cool. But it comes out beautiful, and there's really nothing better than getting a beautiful shot like that. All right, so let's see now. So this is okay. So position 2 has the narrowband. Position 1 has position 2 doesn't have the narrowband. It has the wide. I hate to say wide narrowband. That sounds weird. Position 1 is the ultra narrowband. Let's put it that way. So the ultra filter. Position 2 is the regular ultra high contrast filter. It's not a narrowband as much. Position 3 is the spectrum. So let's just do a spectral filter, shall we? And see what we get. Let's turn off tracking and let it track a little bit. All right, and once we do that, we'll drop this ISO down. Let's say to 5,000, and let's just do 8 seconds. Here we go. And the reason we're doing that is to spread out the spectrum here that we see. Okay. And once that's done, like that, we go back to track. All right. And now we're tracking again. And let's go see what we got. There you go. Now these are the stars in the rosette, and each of these can be analyzed separately. Each of these spectra can be analyzed separately, and we'd actually see some really, really pretty results. We would actually be able to put this in a program I have which can analyze spectra and get a beautiful rendering of what's actually in the star. And it's hard to see it in this image, but when we look at it in the program, and that's actually one of the plans. I do have a setup here where I'm planning on being able to show you, the analysis process, so you can see how we look at real spectra. And Tara's asking a really good question: how do you align photographs when you go to stack them like that? Well, if I had to do it myself, I'd go into Photoshop and I'd bring in each photo. And if I had 20 photos, I'd make 20 layers, and I'd put all the photos in there, and I'd selectively make the one just above transparent, align it with the bottommost one, and then once it's aligned, I'd make it invisible. The next layer up, I would make it semi-transparent, align it with the bottom one, make it invisible, and do it all the way up the stack. That's a manual process, but it works just as well. But there are programs that actually do the stacking for you, and that's kind of what I do these days. And I would actually do that. And I use only these stacking programs typically, and they're really nice. They work very well, and I really like them. They do what they're supposed to do. So now let me okay, there we go. So anyway, for those of you that are out there enjoying this and watching, thank you for coming. Let's keep it up. Let's keep going. So now, let me see. So we're looking at the spectrum of the rosette here, which we have here. And again, each of these can tell us a story about each star that's in here. The spectra of all the stars within the rosette are going to be about the same. Now, why is that? Why would the star spectra in a cluster like this all be about the same? And the reason goes back to how they originated. The stars in this cluster, and these are they right here. Okay, the stars in this cluster all formed around the same time. So they're all pretty much the same age, but they're also all pretty much the same chemical composition. And thus they have pretty much the same amount of mass, and they have, again, they're pretty much the same spectral type. All right. So if they're young B stars, then there might be a difference. Like this one right here might be a B2, this one might be a B0, this one might be a B6 or something. But we're not going to see an M star with a B star and an O star all kind of in the same region, unless it's a line of sight happenstance. And if we look close enough in any picture we take, we will see some red interlopers along the way, and those red interlopers are usually, okay, that one looks like it might be one. This one is definitely one. Okay, these interlopers may very well be just in the line of sight, whether in front of or behind the nebula. Another one over here. Okay, so that's what that is all about. These clusters are just beautiful, but they're prone to this. Another thing you can try if you want to see detail on a nebula, and like right now you can't really see too much, or you can, but you don't see enough, you can do this. You can reduce the size a little bit. Okay, and when you reduce the size, then you can actually see more detail, because your eye actually condenses the areas here, because right here they're all broadly spaced out, for instance. Okay, you can't see much nebula here until you start pulling it out, and then you actually see more as it gets smaller. All right, that's sort of an interesting little thing you can try. So if you're looking at pictures, you can move them further away just to check stuff out. Okay, now again, in the narrow field view, we have this. If you notice, you look here, there's this area here in the nebula is okay. You can see it. But look how bright it is here. Now look at that. That's literally almost all you see is this brightness area, this bright area here. That's something that's very important, okay? So we see this area in the nebula very, very clearly and very brightly, okay? But in this image here, well, it's sort of there. You can make it out if you really squint at it or whatever, but it's this narrow band image that tells you and shows you most of those details, okay? Then over here we have more detail here that we really can't see in this image too well at all. However, in this image here, it is there more obvious than ever. So you see, the narrowband images really do help us a great deal, and that's one of the things that we're going to be doing a lot more of. And now that we have our filter wheel system in the dome, we're able to, without any problem, we're able to shift between filters now, because we've had to use the same one the entire time every time we're out there in the past, but now we don't. And now, for those wondering what it might be like, okay, now position 4 is actually just a blank black piece of plastic that blocks the view entirely. This is because if I took 10 shots of the Rosette Nebula, I also have to take about 30 what are called dark frames. Those are frames that you take at the same time, at the same temperature and duration. Now, I wouldn't want to put you all through that, so what I would do is, after I close the stream, I would shut the filter down, I put the filter to black, and I'd sit here and take the filter shots for the duration we need, and then take them off later on and use them in the process, because you use dark frames specifically to improve your other images, and now we can do that too. But okay, in my next frame opening here, this is a straight through view. There is no filter here. Why don't we do that? Let's take a picture. Let's do a photo. All right, let's go up to, let's see, we did 32,000, I believe. Okay, so we're going to do 32,000, and let's do 20 seconds at 32,000. All right, this is similar to what we did before. And now let's see, let's see what we're going to get for an image, okay? So here we go. Let's check it out. And meanwhile, I'll check the chat, see who's asking something. This is Northeast Toad. We're in Connecticut this time. However, I gotta tell you all something. You ready for this? And this is courtesy of Marianne. The observatory building has been purchased, and we're going to be building the observatory building very soon out there, perhaps in the next several weeks. Okay, this is what you get without a filter, guys. Now, does that look anything like this shot right here? Does that look like anything like this one? This is the wider band shot. And does it look anything like this right here, which is the narrower band shot? We don't see any nebulous detail in this shot, do we? There's supposed to be nebula here. We don't even see it. But do you see that now? This is how filters work for us. Now this, true enough, is true color. But we're also seeing there's like a little bit of a haze, a colored haze in here. This is because we're getting some light pollution. The camera's very sensitive. I gotta warn you, the camera's is extremely sensitive. So the sky doesn't look like this to your eye. All right, the sky is to your eye, the sky is actually more like this. All right. But the sky looks like this to the camera because we're using a very sensitive camera at 32,000 ISO. And actually, let's take a look at what the sky looks like now, shall we? Okay, so I see that we're getting a little haze. This is our all sky cam that's outside the dome right now. You can see the telescope actually inside the dome. Let me just change the size of this a little bit. Let's see, bring this up. Okay, like this. Actually, let me go to here. All right, so this is my view. Okay, and pull this around. I didn't want to do that. That was a mistake. All right, and now let's just tell this to fit in there. Just a sec, guys. All right, so I'm just resizing this window. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so it's on my way to what I want. Oh, come on. I don't like when things like this happen. I don't like it. There we go. Okay, so now we can see. Sorry about this. Okay, so now we can see the telescope inside, and we can see outside here, and it's actually okay, but it's really not the best. Fit the window. Okay, and the stars of spring are kind of boring. We don't get to see too much. It's very exciting, as you can see. Let me get rid of the blue cam for a minute. Okay, this is the house. This is a photo just taken moments ago. And you can see Orion way down there on the horizon. See it way down there? There's the belt. And the Orion Nebula is visible right there below it. Okay, here's Betelgeuse. It's upside down to your eye, just like the house. So if you turned around, you'd see it. So we actually, it does look pretty good. I noticed we have a couple of high clouds here. I'm going to do another setup to make sure we start taking photos again. All right, and then I will do my, later on I'll do my thing that I do where I will take these images and put them together and make them do a AVI file, which is a little video. So, that said, oh, David Schmidt, you're saying something interesting. I got to read this. Oh, that's a very interesting way to put it. David Schmidt writes, you explained to me once, this is Flames of War, he says, you explained this to me once before, only shoot a rocket into space and we're flying through space on the planet. Why don't we run off and leave the rocket? Not quite sure what you meant there, but I think Dave Schmidt was sort of on it. He writes, once an object like a rocket leaves the surface, it's programmed with its own trajectory and flight path. The movements of the planet don't affect it. That's absolutely true, except for one thing, and David knows this, and he probably glossed over it. And that is that as soon as you leave the planet, you're still traveling 1,000 miles an hour to the east, because the planet's rotating toward the east. And that's why when rockets take off, they generally will orbit west to east, because of the fact that we want to take advantage of that extra 1,000 miles an hour or so. So that's momentum that the rocket has leaving the pad. But then once you're off the Earth could jiggle around and do all kinds of things that won't affect you as long as you could ignore the gravity, so to speak. But yes. So that's why. And the other part about that Flames asked the question, like, once it gets into space where gravity's not affecting it, okay, let's take that. Like it's past the Earth moon heading to Saturn, say. As bad, affecting it as bad, and the planets are going through space thousands of miles an hour. How come the rocket doesn't use no fuel to keep up with us? Well, it used all of its fuel up front to, if you want to talk about orbiting, it used all its fuel to put itself into an orbit. And once it's in orbit, moving at a certain speed, the Earth's gravity is trying to pull it down. But if it's traveling horizontally at a certain speed, there's a point where you can travel fast enough horizontally so that as you approach the Earth's curve, as you're going over the surface of the Earth is falling away because of its sphericity, because of its spherical nature, at exactly the same rate that you're moving horizontal, so that it's a balanced orbit. This actually gives you a circular orbit around the planet. And that's what we aim for with satellites many times, is to make them make them achieve circular orbits, so that as you're in orbit, you move at a horizontal speed fast enough so that as the curve of the Earth drops away from you, you're being pulled down at just the same amount that the Earth's curve is dropping away. And that puts you into a circular orbit. You know? So that's kind of how that all works, Flames. And Dave did a valiant explanation as well. I mean, so anyway, getting back to the Rosette Nebula, okay, we've been shooting the Rosette here for in just with no filter, and then with the spectral camera, with the wider band pass filter, and then the very narrow band pass filter, and it's looking pretty good, you know. So now let's go see what else we can do to show you some astronomy. And if you're really liking this, let me know. Hopefully you can hit that thumbs up button too for me. We have about 7 minutes, and we're going to go back on the air with KGRA as we do Robert Stanley's show. Robert's kind of a cool guy. He's a little bit of a conspiracy guy, and so I tend to mouth off at him a little. All right, now we're going to go up to Hubble's Variable Nebula, shall we? And we're going to check that out. We always look at Hubble's Variable Nebula because we want to see if there's changes. Now, we've noticed changes. We've been here before. Daryl knows, okay? And now, again, as we said before, we're doing the the alignment. The telescope is going up to, where's the star it's going to? Usually it's up here. There it is. Alzir. And once it aligns Alzir, it's then going to whip away and go down to the Hubble's Variable Nebula exactly where it needs to be. Okay. So yeah, so now Hubble's Variable Nebula is in here. And when we take a picture, we will see it. And you will like it. And you will say, I want more. And I will say, okay. All right, and then I'm going to take a picture of the cave, which is right up here. All right, so now we have Hubble's Variable Nebula and in our view. We just don't see it yet. I have to show it to you. And for that, let's do this. We're gonna go and take our narrow band filter and take a 25-second photo at 40,000 with the narrow band filter. Okay, and I'm giving my telescope time to acquire its guide star. And let's go do that now. So now we're going to take the picture. Oh, here we go. Yes, we are. Hey, if you haven't done so, you might want to consider picking up a copy of The Populated Universe. It's a shameless plug. But The Populated Universe is available in several formats. You can get it as an ebook. You can get it as a 6x9. Okay, you can see that I have to do a little work on this. It's available as a 6x9. It's also available as a 8x10 full color. The 6x9 is black and white interior. Here it is up here. Let me bring it down. And the ebook, of course, is just all the same. It's all perfect color and so forth. Let's just go and bring it down. All right. Hopefully that's enough. Now we'll do, let me just go into a 4K mode here and see if I can catch it. I think it's right there. Okay. So let's drop our value back down. Let's shut off the 4K. Oh, well, okay, I'm not gonna go, but I'm just gonna have to head over to that call. So here we go.
See?
I'm not missing in action.
I'm not missing in action.
Oh, everybody sounds like they're here.
I am. We've been having a good time streaming. Amanda, I asked if you wanted to join for the hour, but you never got back to me.
Oh, sorry, I went to eat.
Eat?
Yeah,
What do you mean eat? Who does that?
All right.
That's fine.
Now, Robert, the same thing applies. No breaks for hours, for each hour. Now, when do you want me to play these 2 songs?
I think I only want you to play, let's see, the Harvest Blessing.
When?
And I will tell you when. I'm not sure.
First hour or second hour?
Probably the first hour.
All
So
right.
we're going to try and take some calls on the second hour. Unless you want to, yeah, second hour is probably best. And the other one, this joke song, this parody from Italy, I'm going to have to play over my phone.
No.
Why?
Oh no.
What happened?
It's like opera.
Well, I drink too much tequila.
Is that coming through okay?
We can hear it. It sounds far away, but we can make it out.
Well, it is. It's not like you're right in the backyard.
Is this in Italian? Virus Corona? Is it Italian we're talking about here?
Well, I thought they were Italians. Maybe they're Spanish. I don't know.
Amanda, are you okay? What happened to Amanda?
She said, uh-oh. I thought she didn't want to hear my song.
Yeah, I actually thought so too, but something happened, I think.
Hopefully she'll be back. She's on the call. Probably stepped away.
Wow. Governor Cuomo just announced that the coronavirus could last months.
Shit, Amanda just dropped. I'll figure it all out at her while the show is in progress.
Thank you, Bill.
We have 30 seconds. Are you still streaming, Mark?
Oh yeah, I'm still live.
Okay.
So we're gonna be in there, and everybody will be they all know that I'm gonna be streaming too, but I'm also showing them cool stuff, like we're photographing Hubble's Variable Nebula now, and we're gonna go to the cave soon.
Well, stand by, and hello to everybody listening on SkyTour LiveStream. Stand by. Here we go. Get ready, everyone.
Digital broadcast station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as we venture through the Twilight Zone. Beyond the outer limits of reality, to arrive at our destination, the Unicus Radio Hour. And now, here is your host, critically acclaimed author and researcher.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
Greetings, everyone on the planet Earth and beyond. Welcome to another episode of the Unicus Radio Hour. Tonight we are coming to you live from the Bug and Guts Cyber Pub in beautiful Temecula, California, on the greatest alternative talk radio station on the planet, KGRA. Thank you for tuning in. Always a privilege and a pleasure, although I am a bit inebriated this evening, and that will never happen again. And I was kind of conned into this by my colleagues, who shall be named, actually. So this is really cool. We were doing this, if you were listening, a couple hours ago on Don Ecker's Dark Matters Radio, and Don's here with us, as is Commander Cobra, Task Force Griffin, and both of those gentlemen are guilty as charged. Also, Chris DiPerno, Project Areas Radio, and Mark D'Antonio and Amanda Curran from SkyTour Radio here at KGRA. We're all here together. A continuation of Don's Tavern over there, the cyber bar that we set up because you cannot congregate physically. So we thought we would at least get together here on the air and hopefully have some fun. Although I'm not always so good at that. So, I'll give you a little update on what's going on today, what I saw, what I can confirm I saw because we were driving. My wife and I went from Temecula out to Palm Springs. Beautiful drive. The mountains are snow-capped. It was sunny, warm. I didn't see any military. I didn't see any checkpoints. Everybody was being relatively good. The traffic was low, as were the gas prices. And we were still able to get good food and meet with family. And it seemed like a pretty normal day to me, even though I know some people think all hell's breaking loose. Actually, I see there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this. I know this is not the right time to talk about it, but what I thought I'd like to do is, to start with, is ask, we'll kind of go around the room here, the virtual room, as it were, and see what everybody else is seeing in their neck of the woods. So, Don, I'm going to start with you. You're also in California, a little bit north of me, I believe. So what are you seeing? What are you seeing besides rolls of toilet paper showing up on your doorstep?
You got your number, Don.
My wife and I yesterday went out on a very short shopping expedition. And the roads were noticeably lighter than they usually are until we got near the mini mall where we were shopping. And it was jam-packed. But actually, you never would have known if you just had your eyes shut and you opened them up in the parking lot that there was any kind of a problem at all. But we picked up the items we needed. We went back home. And once again, the roads were pretty, spacious. We got home and turned on the radio and everything seemed normal, but yet there is that underlying feeling where you know that it's not.
So yes, of course, there's something, a tension, I think they call that, tension in the air.
Yeah, so, well, I'll tell you, I was feeling the effects, and of course, the worst thing you can do, Robert, is to turn on the news or, the television, the radio, and listen to what they're saying, because it's basically, I call it fear porn. It's basically fear porn. And that seems to be what just about everybody is spouting off about. Yeah, now, that's not to say there's not genuine things to be concerned with, but, to this extent, I even heard rumors purportedly from a very good source that there was a possibility of martial law being declared in California.
Right.
But I'll believe that when I see it, if I see it.
Yeah, it's a pretty big state. You need a lot of personnel to do something like that. So, but it does seem like there's a concerted effort basically to get everybody to be worried sick. And the operative word there being sick. That's just my opinion. Okay, Commander Cobra, what are you seeing up in your neck of the woods, literally?
Well, up here in the great Northeast Territories of New England, Massachusetts is in some pretty rough straits. But Maine, where I'm at, is in pretty good shape. Now, you have realized that the density where I live, more trees than people situation, and my wife and I purposely picked this area and bought as much land around us as we possibly could for these kinds of situations. So for us, as I said on the earlier show when we were all together, we took our smirks and smiles that were directed towards us for our prepping activities. So we're pretty well prepared because we treat the big snowstorms, hurricanes, and all those kinds of things as just standard ops, and you need to be ready for that.
Hey, you forgot power outages.
Yeah, well, the power outages going on. There's the number of things you can do to protect that. When I visited Skywatcher, we've talked about stuff. He's very well prepared where he's in New York. And I think what we've come up with is that more people are going to probably snap to this, the longer it goes, the more converts you're going to have to being somewhat prepared and being somewhat responsible. I don't think the government, quote unquote, the state being the the government, is responsible for my security beyond the national scope. For like enemies and things like that, attacks. I think we need to be kind of doing our thing.
So do you know your neighbors pretty well now?
I do.
They trust each other?
Yeah, we're in good shape. We've always been in good shape. In the past when we've had other problems, I've had neighbors physically live here, at our place because they're a little bit older and they just couldn't be. It was a lot easier to have them here than to be going over there. And in one case, one of them had a very, had a fairly serious respiratory illness that she was dealing with. Just the way you kind of do things. That's kind of a New England tradition. Definitely, I think that is prevalent, though, everywhere. We've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from that kind of thinking. I can tell you right now, if my grandparents were here, this wouldn't be that big of a deal. People that lived through tuberculosis, smallpox, yellow fever when they were growing up, the Depression, and I think they would kind of shake in their head, what's going on here?
Yeah. They were a much hardier batch or bunch than we are in this particular day and age, unfortunately. Chris DiPerno, could you please give us your assessment?
Yeah, I'm come from New York, the same place as our great producer Bill, and New York is now the #1 state with as many positive cases and stuff. But you know what? I listening to the governor, and he just announced that this might go on for months. He doesn't know.
No.
And nobody really knows. But the thing is, I went to the grocery store today, and I put on a mask, I put on a pair of goggles and gloves, and I walked in the store and I got whatever I wanted. The only thing that was out was toilet paper, believe it or not, but meats were there, chicken was there. I mean, the whole thing. Garbanzo beans. Somebody's hoarding garbanzo beans. I can't figure that one out, but. I mean, for the life of me, I can't find a can of garbanzo beans.
Well, you could find the culprits pretty easily because they're going to be sounding off at some point pretty soon, and you just trace the audible.
Yeah, but I'd rather not find them that way if you don't mind. But anyways, so there's New York City and then there's upstate New York, and I'm upstate New York. In New York City, they got to start listening to the bans. They got to start listening to the lockdowns to stop the spread. In upstate New York, I don't know, maybe the water's different. We're actually trying to do that. We're staying away. We're doing the social distance and all that other stuff. So we're good that way. And the only thing I'm worried about here is maybe, when people get panicky, like Commander Cobra had said earlier, that there might be like home invasions and stuff. I'm lucky because I live in a neighborhood that's filled with cops. So if somebody comes to do a home invasion around here, boy, are they going to have a surprise.
Yeah, we just moved into a few months ago to Temecula, which is it's a military town, which I did not know, but I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of good people, a lot of law-abiding people carrying firearms, and they are religious, Christian mostly, and conservative. So I'm very happy that I ended up here, and it's a very beautiful location.
We're going to get through this. This will be a thing of the past, but is like Don has said. Commander Cooper said, and Marcus said, we better learn something from this. This is a great wake-up for this country not to rely on other countries.
Yeah, we had to learn that the hard way, didn't we? So Mark D'Antonio is a scientist, astronomer extraordinaire, and I think a magician is what he was saying. So, and because I think he really is, because he came up with an idea during a conference call here. He came up with the idea of 3D printing toilet paper, which I thought was brilliant. I certainly hope we see that soon. Mark, I'm not kidding. So it's going to happen, Mark. So
actually, you're not.
What are you seeing?
That's true.
Sorry.
Okay. No, you're right. I'll tell you what I'm seeing too, because that was of course, your question.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that I've been seeing is that there's some idiots that are hoarding toilet paper around here. It took 3 days to go find an actual, pack of more than 4 rolls of toilet paper in it. And what is it about toilet paper? You do have alternatives. In the old days, there was not throwaway diapers. They were cloth diapers, if you recall. and they'd have to be washed after they were soiled by the baby. So,
Lovely.
yeah, well, but you did that. You washed diapers, physical diapers. So if people had to use other things like cloth or whatever, they could, and then wash it as always. So I why hoarding toilet paper? Are they looking to like? I don't know why people were convinced to hoard toilet paper. Maybe it was a Charmin thing. Maybe Charmin, started that rumor. Maybe a toilet paper company started the rumor, because in my view, a lot of the panic is being spurred on by the companies that want to profit most from it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's a big problem, And there's political reasons why it's being spurred on too. We have a president that called the press liars, and he's consistently called them liars. They are liars, and I'm glad that they were called out. But guess what? They're not going to say a nice thing. In fact, at the Clearly Not News Network, CNN, it's literally against policy to say anything good about President Trump, whether he's good or bad. Now, yeah, the guy tweets like crazy. He says things that make you cringe. Okay, I get that. However, when he does something good, then it doesn't even get reported. You hear crickets. For instance, he reunited the families who remember they were separated from their children, the undocumented, illegal aliens. They were sent back home, and their kids were separated from them. Well, he reunited them. Do you remember seeing the story anywhere?
No.
No, he did. He reunited the families. He brought them together again, and said, "Look, it was a policy decision that was bad, and we're reversing it."
Wow.
And I happened to dig that story out of a how they always say, the center of the newspaper kind of a thing. It was actually online, and it showed photos of the families being reunited. It showed Trump's statement on it, and it's like, why isn't this like big news? This is very important for workers that have families that were separated. It's increasingly encouraging. So they didn't put it out there. So they're being selective in what they say. They're saying things based on their agenda. That's the problem. Commander would agree, I'm sure, that the agenda of the media is such that they will bring down and destroy this acting president. But if it was the previous presidential administration, they would have insisted that his actions deserve another Nobel Prize. No, really. I mean, that's kind of how I feel.
Yes.
And I don't look at. I know it sounds like I'm a big pro-Trump person. I'm not. The guy has problems. I don't know any president that isn't a narcissist. I don't know any president that wants that job without being.
Yeah, it's a tough job,
right? And I don't know any president that can't be a narcissist to want that job. You have to be. You have to say, you look in the mirror and say, I am really important. Okay. I don't know anyone that can do that. I know that Bill Clinton did that. I'm really important, and I want an intern in my office. Okay, he did that. I didn't like Bill Clinton. Okay, because of the way he treated the presidency. He soiled our Oval Office, and that was our Oval Office.
And a blue dress. Yes.
Yeah, that whole crap. So that was for me a turning point, right? But as far as today, I only see hoarding of toilet paper. I went to the store, no problem. My sushi was there. The chef was there making my sushi, when I went to the supermarket. Okay. I wanted to get pizza. The shelves weren't cleaned out of food. Only the silly toilet paper aisle was empty. It's like, what is going on?
And hand sanitizer.
How about garbanzo beans?
Oh, you know what? I'll send you some. There's plenty of garbanzo beans.
Yeah.
You can use pinto beans as a substitute. People don't know that. Try the pintos.
I'm just telling you, I'm watching eBay to find out who's got them all.
They fell off a truck, Chris.
You know what? You should look up toilet paper on eBay just for a lark to see if anyone's hoarding it. I'll bet you that it'll be up there.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get to, last but not least, Amanda Curran. I'm not even sure where you are. Are you up in Canada still?
I am.
Okay, Nova Scotia. Thank you. Loved it. I haven't been there yet. It's one of the few. I've been to 59 countries so far, but is Nova Scotia actually a country or what? It's part of Canada.
It's a province.
It's a province of Canada.
Yeah.
Glad somebody got a chuckle out of that.
Well,
okay, so what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Actually, in between the break there, I was watching some of the news, and we're at 1,331 cases, only 19 deaths. So in the grand scheme of things, the numbers are low. which
You
is
mean
good.
in Nova Scotia? Yeah.
In Nova Scotia, well, before the show, before Don's show, it was 5 cases. As of now, it is 21 cases.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's kind of to be expected. Things like this go exponential when you're dealing with a planet of 7 billion plus people. As I said to you guys earlier when we started Don's show, CBS News is reporting headline, almost half of coronavirus patients have digestive symptoms, according to a study. Study came out of Wuhan Medical Treatment Expert Group for COVID-19. That's a mouthful. So they're saying clinicians must bear in mind that digestive symptoms, this is a lot easier to say if you don't drink tequila before the show, such as diarrhea.
You have to take your medicine. You have to
I
take
do. I kind of like to drink some more, but I wouldn't be much good as a host tonight. So
Easy
anyway,
for you to say.
clinicians.
I think you got enough coverage
tongue-tied
here.
with you from tequila. Clinicians must bear in mind that digestive symptoms such as diarrhea must be a presenting feature of COVID-19 and that the index of suspicion may need to be raised earlier in these cases rather than waiting for respiratory systems to emerge. So I'm telling you this because I know someone who actually this happened to them.
What Robert said.
Yeah, what did he say?
Okay, I'm not. Are you good looking at chat room or what are we looking at here? Are you?
No, we're listening to you with rapid
Oh, okay.
attention.
I wasn't sure what you're talking. I'm not saying anything. This is coming out of Wuhan Medical Treatment Expert Group. They're saying that it's not just a respiratory illness. This virus is attacking the immune system, including the digestive system. Systems of all people who contract it are at risk for not having the respiratory symptoms. See, and no, I haven't. I heard this a few weeks ago, and it made me think back to someone who I know actually had all that, what they're just describing there, and ended up in the emergency room, and had their immune system compromised because of it. So this is going around, and it's been here since at least December, as far as I can tell. And so a lot of people, the reason I'm telling you is because a lot of people don't know that is part of the symptoms that do present with this virus. So just be aware of that.
You know, Robert, I got to say, Robert, I'm a little confused because I would think that if it's been around since November, December, the People's Republic of China would have warned us because of the importance of passing that information.
Well,
so I'm a little bit concerned that you would draw that conclusion that's been around that long.
I can see you're being facetious, Commander, and that is good. That is a very good thing.
I was just saying, it seems like you're almost a Trumpist when you say that because you took quite a beating back then.
Are you accusing me of being a xenophobe?
Oh no, that would be racist on my part. No, absolutely not. I would not make that kind of silliness.
My wife, just to be transparent, my wife is Chinese.
I know she is, and I was going to ask why we're swinging this around with your recent time working and living in Hong Kong for as long as you did.
Yeah,
and
sharing, I'm probably never going to be welcome back.
Yeah, and sharing with me some of the really unbelievably wonderful experiences that you had there.
No, it was fantastic, and I learned a lot. But there's an undercurrent there. It is really very ugly, and of course it just went completely nuts shortly after we left in April of last year, April 1st actually. So let me
explain the undercurrent, Robert. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I will. Hold on a second. There was something else. See, I don't know how to switch back and forth. Okay, here we go. I'm having to actually use my phone for some of this stuff. One of the other talk show hosts that I'm friends with said, this should be breaking news. Not sure if it is out there in the net yet, but my daughter's partner is a registered nurse. And they have changed the COVID testing as too many people with influenza A, were testing positive for COVID. So now they're testing people with flus and MERS and SARS, and only if they present with pneumonia symptoms are they doing COVID-19 testing. So once again, there's a disconnect here, a bit of confusion, just I guess is to be expected in conditions like this. People get a little bit wacky. As far as Hong Kong, I think the communists really, really wanted to figure out a way to stop that, because it was getting, well, embarrassing to say the least, for the regime there at Beijing. And I'm going to call up something here. Now, here's what I found out. Most people don't know unless you've actually been there. In 1997, when Britain handed back over a 50-year period, which is kind of bizarre, they said, China, you can now have this colony back that we basically stole from you during warfare. Communist mainland Chinese were welcome to then relocate into and live in Hong Kong proper. So you have a very weird mix of capitalist-minded or colonialist Cantonese people who've always been wary of those from the north, and then you suddenly have this influx. I mean, millions of people started coming and living in there. So the population not only shot up, causing other issues. There was this, and there still is. That's the problem, in my opinion, or at least what I've learned from other people who really are living there and actually dealing with it. I didn't have to deal with that. But I'll give you, here's what it says here. One of my friends, he says in Hong Kong, with reports that the USA is struggling to contain the virus, how do you assess the situation as a frothing in the mouth, dyed in the wool communist? Answer: this is the perfect time to inform the Asian brothers over there to rise up and overthrow the government. Now, that's not speculation on his part. He's married. His family is communist, but he is not. He chooses not to be. It's one of the reasons he sought me out. I was kind of leery of this guy when he first, because he says, "Oh, you're in Hong Kong? So am I. I want to meet you." But I was getting like weird feelings about the whole deal. And then the more I got to know him, I realized why I was having those weird feelings. But he was no threat. He's actually become a dear friend. He's a very smart guy. But it's just a terrible situation a lot of those people are in there. And so they were supposed to take 50 years, and obviously they've accelerated the timetable. That's what really pissed off a lot of the truly Cantonese Hong Kong people, not the newly arrived communists that are living there. And so here was the other interesting thing he said. I'm not going to say his name, although I'm sure this is all being monitored, but on the social credit score system in China.
I think you and I are in great debt. We're in negative interest right now with the.
They're throwing darts at our pictures. Okay. This was, see, I would never know this stuff. It's not going to be in the news. It's just because I've befriended this individual, and I guess in a way I'm sort of a shoulder to cry on. He doesn't expect me to fix it. He's just like, it's somewhat cathartic to be able to at least communicate what the hell's going on with somebody outside of your little circle. So he says, after beefing up their propaganda budget by billions of dollars, the Hong Kong government has released a series of cringeworthy ads featuring graffiti cleaners around the city. Like they're up on a high rise or wherever, someplace that's dirty, or there's some not so great neighborhoods in there too. So they're making these guys out. The government is trying to make out the graffiti cleaners as being heroes, right? They're doing this as public service. Well, what they don't show you is that these lowlifes then proceed to put in their own graffiti using profound phrases such as "communist till I die" and "all white people have AIDS," etc. Now, I'm sure you've never heard that, and I know this guy's not making this up, because if I learned nothing else, you got to expect the unexpected when you're living someplace that, it's not my territory. It's not my home per se. And so when people who are real locals there start telling me stuff, wow, eye-opening. So that's a little bit of what I can tell you. Okay, so I didn't direct that to anybody. It's different to live in a place than actually visit. I'd already visited 57 countries by the time I ended up in Hong Kong. Then I went to a couple more. Actually, Bali was kind of a trip. I haven't seen that kind of poverty since I actually went to Egypt in my youth. So, yeah, okay. I think we need a little comic relief because I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this. And I know we were supposed to have some fun tonight, so I am going to...
I have a question for you on that note.
Hang on. What? Go ahead.
For everybody, actually.
Go ahead.
I noticed Commander Cobra and I were posting a lot of funny little coronavirus memes in the chat room,
And
they seem to be getting a lot of people through. I was just wondering if any of you guys had any favorites that actually really made you laugh out loud.
yeah, the one about the toilet paper was like $4,000, and they throw in a free diamond ring. That was
I saw that
Hong
one.
Kong.
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was actually going to play a parody of a coronavirus song here for you guys. So hang on.
Well, this is a little something I got from Mrs. Cobra. I'm putting into the chat room right now.
In pubblico mi sento un criminale, questo virus corona ha una sorta manco e io serve la macchina per sto virus corona. Metto al TG1, TG2, Mediaset pure Sky e Facebook, tutti a dir che ti devi lavare le mani. Non serve il virus corona, serve l'educazione. Sono in quarantena e mo' per tutto il giorno resto con mia moglie, ma che due marrona. Il supermercato mo' è tutto mo', stava solo una bottiglia di birra corona. Questa situazione non funziona, basta fare un pochino d'attenzione. Niente panico, stiamo tranquilli. Dai.
That's from Italy. Some crazy group called Gano. Yeah, whatever. I can't pronounce it. It's all Greek to me.
Or Italian,
maybe. Or Italian, but it's all Greek to me because I travel around, but I don't speak the language. I didn't learn more than a few words of Cantonese while I was there for 4 years. I'm sorry to say. I was actually studying German for some reason. I don't know. Actually, you hear people. I think I know what it was. No, there was a lot of Germans there. There was Russians. There was people from all over the planet were there. I wasn't expecting that. It's a very international, continental type of thing going on. Cosmopolitan city.
Has been, though.
Yeah, I didn't know that though. I thought I was going to Asia. I ended up being stuck there because I wasn't allowed to go over the border. When they found out, I stupidly said, "Oh yes, I have a website." And they looked at it and they said, "No, we're not letting you in here." In case you want to see that, ladies and gentlemen, before the Chinese block it, it is called unicusmagazine.com. That's spelled UNIC, usmagazine.com. A lot of cool, interesting things. Actually, there's some songs there, which I'm not going to play, that are very soothing by Nat King Cole. One of them is called Pretend. It was in my playlist. It's a great song, but I hadn't heard it in years. And suddenly I heard it on my playlist the other day. I thought, wow. That and Smile by Nat King Cole, those will definitely put you in a better mood. At least I think they do. They certainly help me unwind a bit. Not much. What else is happening in this world? So the provenance of this particular virus, actually, from what I've heard, and I know Mark's going to come down hard on me for this, to show my work, as it were. Just the facts, right? I've heard it came out of Fort Detrick. Okay, so and it was what I was telling you before the conference call, Mark. There's allegedly 13,000 what they call life scientists here in America, working at different biological warfare weapons labs under the pretense of coming up with what do they call those? Oh yeah, vaccines, antidotes for biological warfare weapons. So this is something that goes on all over the world. A lot of money thrown into it. It seems like just a completely asinine thing to do. Certainly Plum Island is a place that is a problem as well. But Fort Detrick was the one that allegedly started the problem. They sent it down to University of North Carolina. It was sold in 2015 under the Obama administration to the Chinese specifically, who took it to Wuhan, the lab there, just down the street from the wet market, where they alleged that the people were getting it from bats. And somebody brought a really good point about that. Like, hey, the Chinese have been eating bats for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So why now? There seems to be a disconnect. And also, it's not the only virus coming out of China. I know there's a lot of pollution there. Boy, do I know. And that could be a contributing factor. Also, the fact that they switched on I think 5G actually started being switched on right there in Wuhan. Not just, I mean, for the world. That's where it started. And there is a lot of research on that shows that it decreases or lowers the blood-brain barrier in people. So in other words, it can lower your immune system, certainly cause inflammation at the very least in a cellular level. And I feel like I'm rambling.
No, but I can to
Go
help
ahead.
you ramble less. I think that we don't know all the potential problems with 5G, but we do know that we've had 5G for many years already in our other systems. So it's not like this is something that is new. You know, we've already been subjected to 5G. So
Not at this scale, though.
well, we're still not at this scale. You know,
It's coming.
okay, but it's not here now, and so we can't.
Damn, I'm really cheered up now, guys.
Okay,
Roll
I
the
pour
Nat
you,
King
I'd pour you a
Cole.
shot, Don, but
Anything from Nat
my
King
arm's
Cole,
not done.
roll it now.
Well, it only goes after people with the last name that begins with E. So I think I'm safe with Antonio. Cobra's safe. Okay, Stanley's safe. Amanda's safe. So who else? And DePerno. So who else has an E? I mean, all you need is an E last name. The E last names are the guys that this 5G crisis goes after. So
well, no, you just said Stanley. That ends with an E.
no, it begins with an S.
Oh, begins with an S.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
Sorry, I've been drinking.
Yeah. The last name begins with an E. Those are the only guys that have to worry.
Begins with an E.
Oh my
okay.
gosh!
Oh,
How
I see.
much thought has to
Gotcha.
go?
I'm really cheered up now. Thanks, Mark.
I'm sorry, Don.
What?
I was trying to have fun.
That was like a math question or something.
It really wasn't, but you know what? I guess in your state, maybe it sort of was, and I didn't.
Yes,
intend
I
for
live
it
in to
a
state
be.
of confusion.
Oh
here
no!
in Southern California.
You're the one that was saying you had been drinking, so I was trying to. Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to hide it. I thought that was going to be
No.
the theme for tonight.
I know you were. You did, and that was
Yeah, I'm
fair.
caught up. I think I'm pretty much caught up with everybody. So I'm tired of this. Oh woe is me that I started at 2:00 in the afternoon on the East Coast because I listened to a snake. And he's got me all worked up. But we talked about this like 5 days ago, and I think you started right off the bat. I mean, which is good. You got to get into your art, Robert, and you definitely are a lead in the art world of this with this work. I like to pose a question, and I like to work around with everybody. I talked about a little bit with Don's. The whole press thing, I bring back to, which is probably near and dear to us here at the KGRA family, has treated most people that are engaged or interested in the paranormal and very particularly in the UFOs with a certain amount of snide courtesy over the years. It wasn't until To the Stars Academy and the New York Times came out and talked about the famous Nimitz Navy encounters, what they were, and all that stuff that came out. But don't you think that this is just a continuation of the same? It isn't just the virus. It isn't just the UFO thing. It's agenda-based journalism. And I'm not sure if it's all that much different over time, but there's no balance to it at all. And if you do call it out, you are the whole cancel culture beatdown is incredible. I think that's why KGRA and other stations like it have the kind of following that we do, and we have the kind of people that ask the questions they do when we put shows on.
Okay, I agree with that.
Commander, I got a question for you. What's in the other hand? You said, and I've been thinking about this.
You're not literally asking me.
No, I wouldn't answer that.
Yeah,
No. What I'm saying.
I just had to take. I had to.
You had to take your shot. Go ahead.
I had to disarm Mark.
I need another shot.
I could hear him spinning up like a sidewinder. The tone was coming over my headset. I just knew what was happening.
Not a problem whatsoever. You gotta every once in a while. You got to do what you got to do. My question to you was, remember you kept saying, "Listen, there's something else coming down the pike."
I agree.
And I've been thinking about it. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there is too. But what? I mean, let's not be a conspiracy theorist here and say, oh, it's the alien invasion next or whatever it may be. And it could be. I don't know. But hey, listen, how do you know these little grays haven't been abducting us to give us the craps? Now we're getting the coronavirus and everybody's running for toilet paper.
let me try this. Let me throw this at you into the parlance here, into the discussion. I'd love to hear everybody's take on it. We have been marching towards I thought, a major moment of disclosure. I really do. I really thought we were going to get a major breakthrough.
Isn't that amazing how that breaks down, Deuce? Isn't that
it's
amazing?
over now. That is over. In fact, if somebody was to come out right now and start to talk about it in the current atmosphere we're in, and now what has just come out? Now we have Governor Cuomo, who I don't particularly like, but I have to give him, I think, a pretty decent thumbs up for how he's handled the situation in the great state of New York. I do think he's done a decent job of trying to work these things, and he's endorsed or embraced federalism as I think it was set up in the Constitution. But no, he's just popped out, or it's come out in Twitter, that we're looking now 2 to 4 months, and I've heard all these numbers being bandied around. In my opinion, we really got close to the point of the disclosure or the next reveal, and all that's reset. Every aspect of our lives has been reset, and I do not minimize this disease, this virus as it's going on. Has not had the physical impact that the previous flus, swine flu, tuberculosis killed more people last year than coronavirus will this year, unless something drastically changes.
Can you imagine if they came out and said, right now in the White House lawn, the president said, oh, well, hey, by the way, these little green guys or gray guys running around, they're real. They've been coming down here abducting every of you guys. There's really life on other planets. Somebody would go out and hoard all the aluminum foil to make hats. They really would.
No,
you
they
would
wouldn't.
find a run to the stores. I need aluminum foil.
No,
all right, let me throw an axiom in here, because then I'll give the floor up. What if this is the setup to the announcement? What if this is our extraterrestrial visitors have the solution to help us, and we get we all join as a planet? What if this is the setup for that we can't get ourselves clear of this terrible thing that's happening?
Oh boy. Okay, that could segue into something that I think I'm going to preface it this way. I'm pretty sure I know why the deep state, the powers that be, the shadow government, the elite, the 1%, why they hate Trump so much, because they actually fear him. If he was to go forward for another 4 years with Space Force, they could stand to lose it all. So it's something that hit me the other day, that I know the dark side is real. I've dealt with it. It's somewhat is interdimensional, but it affects our consciousness, which is a non-physical thing that obviously controls the physical. And a big part of what they're doing to us right now is generating enough fear for them to manifest whatever it is that they think they want to see or need within their little empire. And it is very minuscule compared to what the good guys, let's just call them the good guys, what they have manifested. I actually have some pretty interesting images on my website about the cosmic web of light that scientists have recently discovered with instrumentation, and something I'd actually been shown in you could say telepathically, mentally, whatever, years ago. So there's a whole dichotomy that we have to really understand here that's going on. We have to choose between going towards this web of light or continuing down the path of this web of lies.
You know what I just flashed on, Robert?
Go ahead, Don.
When you were talking about that, I flashed on something called the Collins Elite.
Yes, by Nick Redfern. Yes, it broke that story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah, actually, I heard. Okay, who is the host? Bill. Who was that Nick Redfern was on? I'm blanking on her name. The British lady. She's on KGRA. What? Tracy Austin. Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, you did a replay of that her interview with Nick Redfern, and he was talking about this, which it jogged my memory. Yes, they need to use our consciousness to create thought forms.
And also
Yes.
that there is this group, the Collins Elite, allegedly in the Pentagon, basically regard all UFO activity and sightings and craft, etc., as from the nether regions, demonic.
Lower astral.
It is a demonic deception. And here we are dealing with something a lot of people may regard as having come from the nether regions, this virus. So,
True.
you know, at any rate, when you were saying what you just said, that's what I flashed on. It was almost like a revelation.
Well, your antennas are very keen, Don, because you, as a police officer and serving in the military, thank you very much. You have to. It's called situational awareness, and or as you said, trusting your gut, because that'll keep you alive in a hostile environment. And unfortunately, this planet is a hostile environment only because we have been not invaded so much as just. Or I think it's more of an infiltration because they're very covert about their nature. They're actually very weak, even though they present themselves as being all powerful. They're not, and so they have to use deception, manipulation, coercion, and cruelty. And so, but their day is coming very shortly, and that's one of the reasons they're going ahead with this. It's truly an act of desperation, and I think it's going to have unintended consequences. A lot of people are going to wake up from it. They already are. They're asking a lot of questions that they never would have asked otherwise, and so this is all part of a process. Any thoughts? Anybody can chime in here.
I think you're both spot on. I mean, I really think that you have tapped a very strong vein that is going on with this. This was not supposed to happen. This is just a continuation of a long fight that has gone on within this deep state, within this globalist movement. And I'm not a person that's opposed to seeing this planet united on that. I just don't want to take lessons from people that run concentration camps and don't allow free speech. I'm a liberty-loving person.
Well, because you're a healthy soul. Commander, you're a normal person, a healthy soul.
Well, I think normal person might be stretching it just a tiny bit for those that are close to me.
Most of the time.
And don't ask Decker for that reference. Don't ask Decker for that.
Okay, but most of the time, all kidding aside, you really are a good guy, and that's one of the reasons I reached out to you when I heard you speaking with Ralph Ring, because I could.
You and I resonated from the start on that, and I think that happens, and that's the reason why I think it happened with the gentleman you were talking about in Hong Kong, and why every person that's here tonight, and I think one of the most interesting ones, if she's still close by, is Amanda. Amanda has that same kind of resonance that people will talk and share with her, and she is very, very astute when it comes to that, to these matters.
Okay, Amanda, that's your cue.
She's in trouble now.
Are you drinking too, Amanda?
No.
Okay.
You're Canadian. Lucky if she's not drinking.
She's watching Terrence and Phillip.
All right. Well,
have a Molson,
well, let's see. Yeah, Molson Ale is extra dry is fantastic, I think. But that probably comes from the West Coast of Canada.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
When I used to drink Labatt's Blue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds very Canadian.
That's the East Coast, I believe, Montreal, Quebec areas where the major.
I had a very interesting situation happen to me in Canada back in late 1972, but I'm not going to talk about that now.
Excellent. Great. So moving on.
Oh boy, talk about setting a hook. When you're
I could tell you something interesting.
You weren't even born in 1972, so nothing interesting's happened to you.
Okay, Amanda, please continue.
No, well, I think it's interesting being Canadian. I was actually born in Toronto, so I thought this was kind of interesting. You guys know how like every 100 years, every decade ending with 20 has had like some kind of plague or whatever.
Yeah,
that's been going around as memes for like a little while and stuff. Okay, listen to this stat, okay?
Go for it.
In 1918, Toronto won the first Stanley Cup, their first Stanley Cup, okay? In 1919, the Stanley Cup was canceled because of the Spanish flu. In 1992 to 1993, Toronto won the first series, the first World Series. And in 1994, the World Series was canceled because of the NLB strike.
Huh.
And then last year in 2019, Toronto won the first NBA championship. And now, because of this, the championships might be canceled.
Good Lord. Sounds like a conspiracy.
What did
to me.
Toronto do? It's like bad karma. Every time Toronto wins anything, it's shut down the next year.
Well, Toronto must have pissed off the Chinese.
Yeah.
You can't blame China for all of them.
No, the Spanish flu
Sure
actually...
we can. Watch.
The Spanish flu looks like it may have originated actually in Kansas. Yeah. And polio originated here as well. So, I mean, we're certainly no, innocents in all this. Whether it was by accident or whatever, I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, Mark, I don't think that there is the question of innocence. The question I think that goes on there is that they've been taken to the woodshed by the present occupant of the White House for the crap that's gone on leading to this.
Yeah.
And they didn't say anything to anybody for a few months as this was going on. And of course, in this theater of the ridiculous that's going on, the president was a xenophobic racist for halting flights from China, which we're pretty sure now probably helped quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
if it was a Wuhan province virus, if it originated
But
in the
now
live animal market...
now he's not enough. He's not acting enough as a dictator because he's not telling the states what to do.
Yeah, and
we're back to our media equation.
Yeah. It's actually kind of tough, I think, to be in that position. You know, you're gonna...
Brilliantly dissected, Deuce. Brilliant.
Thank you,
Well,
Decker.
Yeah, Don, I'd like to know what your take is on this situation and why, generally speaking, the elite hate Trump so much. Do you think they fear him?
Oh, absolutely, beyond any doubt. Look, Trump is not a politico, okay? He didn't come from the political class. Look at our political class. And I had an irrevocable break with a family member during the 2004 election. Now, I got to tell you, in all honesty, and any of you people that know me know that I strive to be honest to a fault, okay? George W. Bush is somebody that I would not piss on today if he caught on fire, all right? But in 2004...
Tell us how you really feel.
Against John Kerry, that Vietnam phony son of a bitch,
Oops.
all right? I just... Well, the guy shot himself in the ass. Did you know that?
Wow.
John Kerry did. Oh, yeah.
I heard about throwing the medals over the whatever and then retrieving them. But...
You know, him and Jane Fonda, look, I could get off on a rant here, and I'm sure there are a hell of a lot of people out there that don't want to hear that. But at any rate, look at the political class that we have. People like John Kerry, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the political class, the people that have bathed and swam and drank in the political class. And here comes this basically rough, tough, harsh-talking guy from New York City who is a massive builder, somebody that has dealt with all kinds, never in his life before he sought political office did this man ever do one damn thing that would suggest he was a racist. But yet he threw his hat into the ring, and suddenly it was as if the whole world turned a page going after this guy. Now, unfortunately for the political class, and you asked, so it's coming.
I did.
Okay?
Come on, let's have it. Both barrels, Don.
Okay, so here we go. Here's this man who comes basically out of nowhere, although everybody knew who he was for years and years and years. But he is seeking the presidency. Now, there are a hell of a lot of people in this nation, the United States, that have had it up to here. And I'm 6'2", and I'm putting my hand about 2 feet above my head. All right. Have had it up to here with the crap that we have been force-fed for 50 damned years. All right.
At least. Yeah.
At least 50 years. Now, the border, for example, just the border.
Yeah.
We have had unlimited migration swamping this country. During the Obama administration, they had a policy called catch and release. These people would come up, the Border Patrol or ICE would nab them breaking into the country. Hey, it's illegal. There are laws against that. But in this political environment, laws have gone out the window. Now, as a cop, a former police officer, and a detective, that offends me. It offends me. If I were to go driving down the street drunk and got pulled over, guess what's going to happen to me? They're going to impound my vehicle. They're going to arrest me. They're going to take me to jail. I'm going to have to post bond. I mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Before it's all said and done, if that were to happen to me, I'd be out at least 15 grand. And that's not counting my car insurance. Okay. Yeah. But that's not happening with these other people. They get caught. They get released. Hell, we had, well, I'm not going to go into that either because I'm sure already I've been labeled a racist. But the bottom line is, here was Trump saying, I'm going to do something about that. Now, we've all heard politicos for years. My entire life, I've heard them say, well, if I'm elected, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Jimmy Carter, for example, in our little bailiwick. If I'm elected, I'm going to find out what the story is about UFOs. Right. Well, that got a lot of people excited. Guess what? He got elected.
Yep,
never heard another damn word about it. He was asked about it. That's really not something I can talk about. Okay. Right. And that was over 40 years ago. So politicians lie. Everybody knows that. But if they're the right political persuasion, hey, they get a pass. Well, Trump tells the damned truth. Yep. And that scares people. If he says, you know what? I'm sick of this NAFTA deal. We're getting screwed. We're getting screwed by Mexico. We're getting screwed by Canada. We're getting screwed by the Chinese. I'm going to put a stop to that. And guess what? By God, he did.
Yeah.
That scares them because China is very damned popular.
Yes, Amanda, I was going to jump in there and just defend you that
Thank you.
wasn't really directed at you in Canada.
Oh, no, I'm not directing it at Amanda, but I do think Justin Trudeau is a turd, but that's just...
Aside from that.
Canada, are we, Don?
But I mean, to get back to Trump, all these people in Washington are making money hand over fist from their Chinese deals.
Yeah.
Okay. And their political, what the hell do you call them? The people that are in there for corporations and, trying to get. I'm sorry?
Lobbyists?
Lobbyists, thank you.
Those guys.
I should have remembered
crony
that.
capitalist culture that is driving this country to the depths of hell.
30 seconds, guys.
And one of these days, it's going to implode in a big way. That's my final word on it, unless you want to catch me on the break.
Well, okay. Let's hold it there, everybody. Thank you, Don. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Unicus Radio Hour. I am your somewhat inebriated Jedi journalist, Robert Stanley, broadcasting on my favorite alternative talk radio station on the planet, KGRA. We'll be right back after these messages. Thank you.
It's a heightened state of spiritualism.
I'm sorry, I got on a roll there.
I love
Hey, I think that was a
Don.
wonderful roll.
I love Canada, but Trudeau's a piece of crap.
Yeah, no, he said he's a turd.
Turd crap. I mean, it's all the same thing.
What was the
baby.
thing you called it? A fluvial, or what did you say? Don't you? What was that word you used for the call of nature?
Abolition.
Oh,
Abolition.
so you could have called him an abolition. I guess nobody would have known what that is.
No, I when I want them to remember it, I say it straight.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I
that is a
remember
good
that
thing.
one.
Yes, Stanley's
Yeah,
Speakeasy.
don't confuse it for
in cyberspace.
absolution.
Now that has nothing to do with you, Amanda. You we love, but you know.
By the way,
Although I
it's
was
getting
called a
defensive when
baby
Canada
killing.
comes up.
I was called a baby killing mercenary in Canada.
well,
I-
Don,
when
I
I
have to
first-
tell you,
Bitter taste in your mouth.
Is that
When
where
I
you
first
landed
got
first?
back-
Don.
When I first got back from Vietnam, I went up with a buddy of mine who used to go up every year fishing. And we went up to Peterborough to a place called Rice Lake. I don't know if you may or may not know where that's at.
Amanda, I'm
but
not even
anyway.
sure if I'm not even sure if your parents were born, Amanda, when this story took place.
So anyway, we're
Don's not
in
that
this
old.
bar, and my buddy Mike and I were drinking beer, and I had to go in and relieve nature, and I go into the bathroom, and this guy walks in, and my hair was still really short, and he said, "Are you a Yank?" And I looked at him and I said, "I'm an American, yeah." "Oh, you look like you're in the Army." And I had just gotten out of the hospital after almost 6 months in there when I was wounded.
Oh God.
And I said, I just recently got out. "Oh, so you're a Vietnam baby killer, huh?"
Wow.
And that's not what I wanted to hear. So I hit him.
Good for you.
And
Good for you.
he went
He had it
down.
coming.
He went down and he was bleeding from the mouth. And suddenly I thought to myself, "You stupid shit. You're in a foreign country. You
Oh, yeah,
just
that's true.
assaulted a foreign citizen." So I went out and grabbed Mike and I said, "We're leaving."
So what you're saying is you were a turd.
No, I was a pissed off turd.
Yeah.
Well, that is a big difference.
Wow.
That is actually a big difference. You know, Don, I wanted to tell you, you know, since I'm still streaming, I've actually a lot of people are listening.
Do you
thank
actually have anybody still listening?
Yeah, I don't know how many are still. Let me see how many people are watching right
6
now.
people.
10 seconds.
16. No,
10.
but I have a friend,
16.
the guy in
16.
Bangkok, Dave Schmidt, said, you know, he's basically on your side. This is a guy in
we go.
Bangkok. He loves you.
There we go. 3,
Here we go.
1, go.
Welcome back to the Unicus Radio Hour. I'm your Jedi journalist, Robert Stanley, broadcasting on the greatest alternative talk radio station on the planet, KGRA. Thank you for sticking with us through the break. We do have open lines now available because I know you're just chomping at the bit to speak with the rest of us here. People don't like to call me, but if you'd like to speak to Don, Commander Cobra, Chris, Mark, Amanda, or even Skywatcher Bill, because that's the first guy you're going to talk to, you would dial 855-472-5483. That's 855-472-5483. Or, if it makes it easier for you, 85 KGRA Live. Kind of like that. And that's brought to us by Paranormal Radio App. So thank you guys at Paranormal Radio App. I don't think I was getting that correct before. I'm learning as I go, guys. I'm still getting the hang of flying by the seat of my pants here, as it were.
Robert,
So
may I
Go ahead.
pose a quick point here?
Go ahead.
I'd really like to get Mark's read on this.
Go
Mark,
ahead.
are we at a reset like the loss of the Hamadi Library? What's going on right now as this thing pushes through, especially to the subjects that are near and dear? Are we at some great reset that we're going to institutionally lose a lot of intellect, a lot of discussion? And Robert, I really think you have tapped onto something.
Which part?
Well, the part where you talked about what led Decker before he wound up and basically lit up the entire North American continent with
He did. A lot of my people
and
in my chat just like
Yeah.
went crazy, loving him.
Yeah, cyber punched the entire North American continent. It was beautiful. I mean, I had
I'm
tears.
sorry.
No,
nice
don't-
one, Don.
sorry
Good-
about.
good
Don't
going.
you be sorry. Don't you dare be sorry.
Never
You own
apologize
it,
for
embrace it.
exercising
Yeah,
your
have a
freedom
drink
of
on me,
speech.
Don.
But I think your tie into the Space Force, and
Yep.
you know, despite all the things that are going on, you know, you really have elevated that discussion with me off air.
Off air, yeah.
that you have
I was-
shared with me. You really
I
have.
was gonna hold that. I was gonna hold that card until I meet with you on your show in April. But this seemed like the appropriate time to play it,
Yep.
or at
No,
least
I
put it
think-
out there.
I think it's a really, really good point. But I really think this is rolling back
Hmm.
a lot of things socially and subjects that are near and dear to us, especially on this station. The people that you know, the family that tunes in to this station, and I consider very good friends. I mean, the correspondence I've had with people that are engaged with this, and the disgrace that I host. I mean, look how everybody got together for these this show, this whole thing we're doing this weekend. But I really feel like this was the only way to roll it all back, to maintain control, was to pull a stunt like this. And I'm not saying that it's not real. Don't misunderstand me.
Right.
But I really think that this is a rollback period. I don't think it's going to work. My
No.
gut tells me it's not going to work.
No, it actually has an opposite effect on people who are like just kind of on the fence when it comes to waking up on every level and seeing asking tough questions and actually looking at it for what it is as opposed to what they want us to believe it is. So one other component, though, that came to me about Trump is that he has a son who's young enough that he could theoretically serve 8 years down the line and carry on his dad's legacy for America. And I guarantee you that is unacceptable to the powers that be. Just that's one of the reasons that they cut the head off the Kennedy clan twice, maybe even 3 times.
I don't know, Robert, if that's necessarily a good thing. Now, I don't know his son other than what I've seen on the TV. Occasionally he's interviewed by various people.
Yeah.
But what has he done in order to rate being
Nothing. Look
capable
at John.
of handling an office like that?
I know. Look at John Jr. Wasn't it the one that died in the plane crash? His wife and
Kennedy?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, it was.
John Jr.
John.
He didn't.
Sure.
He didn't do anything either. But they were talking about him being a shoo-in as a senator in New York State.
It was just the name recognition, the same as Hillary.
And that's
when
what I'm
Hillary
trying to say.
became, right,
Yes.
senator in New York.
And that's all
Hillary
I'm trying to
did New
say.
York, for God's sake.
I
He
know
was
they
a
were.
carpetbagger.
I thought that John Jr. actually died because of he went into a death spiral with the plane because of a loss of orientation. I mean, it was the spiral when they showed the trace. It was actually a classic textbook. He
definitely was spatial disorientation as presented on that.
That's what it absolutely looked like that to me.
Possibly, he
But
definitely
he was not
possibly-
rated. He was not rated to fly in those conditions.
Yeah,
And
he
it
was trying
another
to beat them. Yeah.
example of a Kennedy breaking the rules because they didn't
They're
apply,
Kennedys.
and he ended
Well-
up dead.
Okay, and that was just convenient. But it was convenient for people that don't really want a dynasty, unless it's the Bushes. That seems to be perfectly acceptable. Those guys seem to get away with literally murder.
Really?
Multi-generational.
Wow. I thought you were
Just a
talking about.
thought.
I thought you were talking about the Clintons.
Well, yeah, but they didn't get multi-generational. They only have Chelsea, whereas
they killed the
Kennedys had-
generations worth of people in their own time though.
Well, they could, but that's not going to happen. No, but the
they already
Bushes
did.
definitely did that, and then we also had who was the other one you were talking about? The Kennedys. I was mentioning the Kennedys. Yeah, they definitely could have done it. Could have, but they didn't. But it would have been a dynasty. See, that's what anything that, and I'm not a fan of the Kennedys. I know they got a lot of skeletons in their closet, but it certainly could have been a threat. They don't like, they want people that are cooperative. They being the cabal that actually runs this planet. it's just they don't like the competition, and they want everybody to be very cooperative with their corrupt.
Well, what's your take, Robert, on the Space Force?
I've had a lot of mixed feelings on it, Don, but I just recently, I don't know where this came from. I can't really articulate exactly what it was that triggered me into thinking, oh my God, that could be the leverage. That could be the fulcrum to actually turning this planet into a civilized world. That tool, that agency could literally have the high ground on multiple levels to turn this world. It wouldn't be so much a threat from outside. It's the threat that's here already. This small group of elites that are manipulating everything behind the scene with that kind of force from that level of military high ground and intelligence. It would definitely, or could definitely, if in the right hands, a nationalist with that kind of projecting that kind of national power from space could turn the tables, the tide completely. Now, and this is one of the reasons Democrats are going completely batshit crazy trying to get him out, because they want the status quo to have control over that. If he gets another 4 years and he actually built Space Force and whatever other appendages that go along with that, they definitely could clean up this planet and make America more than just great. It would be it really would be the dominant, leading, driving force as a capitalist free market system.
Well, several things. Number one, anybody that believes that space is not weaponized, go back and have another Kool-Aid, okay?
Yep.
There are weapons up there. You're damned right there are weapons up there. It goes against, it goes against everything I believe in to believe that there are not Chinese weapons, Russian weapons, and American weapons up there. Now, as far as the Space Force.
What did you say, Commander?
No, that was me. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm hearing things. This tequila is making me hear double.
Okay.
Don, go ahead. You were talking.
Yeah, as far as the Space Force. Now, I've been banging around in this field for a long time.
You sure?
And I butted heads with people in the military. I butted heads with people in NASA. I've known practically everyone worth knowing in this field going back to the late 80s. And one thing I can tell you, never in all that time have I seen anything to compare to the last couple of years. The To the Stars Academy, the people involved with that, watching those 6 episodes that they aired, and allegedly there are more coming, but people including an Undersecretary of State for Intelligence, a black budget engineer from the Skunk Works, a former scientist with the CIA, and a freaking rock and roll star, okay, which I find that ludicrous. But be that as it may, they're there.
Obviously not a big fan of Buckaroo Banzai, the movie. I can see that. Okay, go ahead, Sue.
But the bottom line is, when I watched that, and they were talking about this Tic Tac UFO, the Nimitz battle group, the Atlantic battle group that encountered things out there in the Atlantic, etc. One thing I've noticed, now my wife was the originator of UFO magazine. My wife is an actual journalist, graduated journalism school. As a matter of fact, when she turns on the news, she freaks almost every time at the unprofessionalism she witnesses. But that's story for another day. But we're watching this, and I said, Vicki, what have you noticed? And every episode, they're pounding the desk, metaphorically, about a threat. What threat? From who?
Right.
Are these things basically, hey, are they from the former Soviet Union? Are they from China? Are they from North Korea? Well, no, they're not. Okay, because if they were, believe me, we'd already know it.
Of course.
So what are they? Are they black budget American? Well, I'm willing to stretch a little bit and say some of them, in fact, may be. But Not all of them. I think there's another player out there. Now, in those 30 plus years I've been doing this, one thing I have noticed, and I've gotten it from numerous and many sources, if we are being visited, we're being visited by more than one group.
Right.
And something else I've heard over the years that I've gotten from numerous sources, there are several groups here that are very friendly toward humanity. There are a couple that are at best benign. They could care less.
Yeah,
but they're not going to interfere, etc. But there is one group that is violently antagonistic toward humanity for who knows what reason.
Right.
Now, somebody may have fingered that to Trump. And that may be one of the reasons this whole Space Force thing was initiated.
Right, but they're not saying that. They're just saying it's, whatever, China, Russia.
Have you been watching the ISS, the feed from the ISS?
No. No.
I do. I see it all the time.
What?
But you have, Mark, right?
Sure, all the time. I used to watch it when it was the high definition.
Has something odd and somewhat of an enigma popped into the view screen, and suddenly the feed drops?
Yeah, I've heard that a number of times. I've seen it a number of times.
I've witnessed it a number of times.
So have I, and I could predict when the feed would drop after a while because I recognized where in their orbit they were, and I knew when they were going to reach the dead zones. The ISS, our technology is fantastic, but we can't catch every second from the ISS. Did you know that?
You better tell people what that means, Mark.
I'm going to.
ISS?
Yes,
Okay.
International Space Station. The International Space Station is the biggest object we have up in space right now, and it's a large space station. It's hundreds of feet across. You can't miss it. It goes over on a night. It looks sort of yellowy because of the solar panels are actually kind of a coppery color. And when it crosses over, you can see it with your eye. And wherever it is in orbit, as long as it's still illuminated by the sun, we'll see it. And that's what we have it's called a visible satellite pass. Well, the ISS also sends down video to the Earth. But to reach places on the Earth, it has to go through either a satellite and get relayed to the ground, or it has to go to a ground station that can receive the data. Now, I know we think the Earth's a small place, but it's an 8,000-mile diameter planet. And if you look at the overall area on the planet, all the surface area on the planet, it's so big that when the ISS is up in orbit, when it crosses China, all right, by the time it reaches the middle of China, China's in every single viewport in every direction, all right?
Wow.
And we don't have a ground station in China. We don't get a feed out of China, and so the signal goes down. When it crosses over the Indian Ocean, there's a spot over the Indian Ocean where it doesn't see land anywhere, just ocean, and there's no ground station to pick it up. South Pacific, the same thing. Okay, so there are times when the feed goes down because it goes down. We don't have the technology to get the feed. We don't have a
Those
satellite.
aren't the times I'm talking about, Mark.
Well, how do you know?
Because something
Well, there's that one where the
flies
astronaut's
into the
hand
damn
comes
into the damn camera.
Well, I've seen that a
Okay.
million times. Actually, I did. I think it was One on Earth actually, and it might have been season 2 of One on Earth, because they used me to do their video analysis for a lot of these things. They acquire all the footage, and at the end of the filming segments, they would come to me, and I would do all their analysis for them. And a number of these were they had pet names like the Millennium Falcon, okay, stuff like that. No, it looked like the Millennium Falcon. But a number of these things were actually artifacts, for instance, created by the cameras themselves, because the way the cameras are housed, they have a cover on them. The cover's clear. The clear cover sometimes gets pitted by a micrometeorite, and then that shows up on the next pass as this brilliant object that seems to travel across the view for some reason. All you're looking at is the changing reflection. However, and I'm not saying that's what you saw, Don. I'm just saying that this is something that has happened, and a number of these things, like this particular one that was really prevalent. People said, "Hey, it's the Millennium Falcon. It's showing up this thing on the feed," and then NASA cut the feed. I'm so sick of hearing those words, because NASA didn't cut anything. Okay, the feed was dropped because of the fact that they didn't have a ground station to pick it up. There are a lot of holes in the feed. It goes away. Like if you watch it for 25 minutes, a full 4 to 6 minutes is not going to show because it just drops intermittently here and there. I wish it wasn't that way. It's crappy, but it does happen. Now, as far as what the Millennium Falcon thing was, it turned out that it was actually a lens flare into the housing of a reflection off a particular location on the ISS, the International Space Station, that occurred every orbit, every time it reached that same spot. And they saw 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. That's a hell of a place to go to see sunsets, let me tell you, I would think. So that said, I'm sure that, there are people that watch the feed. They see it once. They see this object. Whoa, what's that? Look at that. And then they report it. And then it blows up. Well, I watched several of those feeds. I watched the high-definition Earth viewing experiment feeds for months. I had them up constantly all day long on my many monitors in my bunker here. All right, and I'd watch these feeds, and when I got that task, I said, okay, that was this particular camera on the HDEV experiment. Let's go watch that camera again. And I went to the spot on all the recordings for that same spot. And sure enough, the Millennium Falcon rose again the next night, 45 minutes later. And then it rose again, and then it rose again, and it rose again. So when I showed that, it was like, well, okay, not exactly an artifact. So what you saw could very well have been the real thing, for instance. But
or it was swamp gas.
But for the most part, they're actually these things are being called out by people that don't know the gaps in the feeds, don't know how much it actually does fail. And there's
where do you come down on the idea that the military / intelligence services, in fact, may have a secret space program? Do you give any credence to that or not?
Well, I know there is, and I know that firsthand experience not because I was involved in one, but because I had an incident that occurred where I had to go get a minor surgical procedure, and on my form, called the intake form, when you go to an office, it's say, what brings you here today? And you fill it out, right? Well, on my form, I put, I have this problem. I can't breathe out of my left sinus. I got to get looked at. And on my form, it asked my occupation, and I said I do special projects for the Navy, which is absolutely true. And so when the doctor came in, he said, "Oh, special projects for the Navy," and I told him the details. He says, "Wow, I do that kind of work too." You're a doctor.
He's a doctor, yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that he wasn't always a doctor, and the chronology here is not exactly right as I've told it before, because I went to him for to have something removed from my sinus that was up there.
An implant.
That's ostensibly what it could have been, because literally 1 week later, when I called for the results, he came on the phone to say, well, the pathology group seems to have lost it, but don't worry, it's nothing that can hurt you. All right?
It ran away.
It ran away, yeah. And I said, okay, and I chalked it up to strange, but I had no evidence that it wasn't what he said. And then several years later, I went back to him for something else, and that's where this picks up. I filled out the intake form, like I said, and when I filled it out, I put, that I do these projects. And then he came in and said, I just gave up my top secret clearance this year. And I went, What? What were you operating on? Top secret nasal polyps or something? What the hell? And he basically said, oh, no, I wasn't always doing that. And this goes to your question, Don, long-winded as always, I'm sorry. And that is that the U.S. Navy, in conjunction with the government, U.S. government, was operating a program to see if nuclear weapons could take down enemy satellites. Now, that project was known in the back in the day as Project Starfish, okay, near as I could tell. And they were testing high-altitude airbursts of nuclear weapons. The famous photo of Honolulu being illuminated by this airburst it made the rounds. I had it in a book, in fact, and it was a bright airburst. And I asked him, I said, you were part of Starfish? And he goes, I can't tell you specifically. He goes, but what I will tell you is that we cleared the Pacific for 1,600 miles in every direction so we could do this. And he had this smile on his face. And I was like, wow. I said, that violates every SALT treaty ever invented. I mean, the weaponization of space. I said those words. And he goes, yeah, he says, that's why we had to clear everything. So in other words, as long as we clear it and nobody sees it, we didn't do it. See?
Yeah, if the tree
yeah.
falls in the forest and nobody
Right.
hears it, it didn't really fall.
Right.
Well, I know a physicist who, when I asked that question about a secret space force
Yes.
with extremely advanced technology, he was convinced it was certainly a viable idea.
Well, sure.
In other words, yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, and don't forget, I had that experience on a nuclear submarine when I went to sea again because of the project work, and we saw something. I just happened to be a witness. Saw something move through the sonar very quickly, and when they figured the speed out, it was moving several hundred knots underwater.
Wow.
Nothing we have moves several hundred knots underwater. Nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Officially, we don't have anything like that.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Nothing moves several hundred knots underwater, Robert. Nothing. All right.
Well, if it's super cavitation around the craft, they can do that.
Except it only moves around 200 knots, and it's the Russian Squall torpedo, and it's the loudest thing in the ocean. This thing,
Right.
Yeah, it's not a whale fart.
And this thing wasn't loud? Okay.
No, this was a small, tiny little trail that was there, and then it was gone.
Wow.
And the kid called it a fast mover when he reported it. And I had the opportunity to work for the Joint Chiefs about 4 years after that. And the project, one singular project. And I sat with one of the chiefs, and I asked him the very question, what can you tell me about the fast mover program? And in my head was saying, don't ask him, don't ask him, don't ask him. And my mouth was going, blah, 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 fast mover program. And I said, oh, you said those words. And I just stared at him like a kid with my deer in the headlights look. And he looked at me, and he could have said, what's that? I haven't heard of it. Or he could have said, I don't know. He didn't. He said, oh, I can't talk about that program. I'm sorry, Mark. And I think I might have held my breath and was about to pass out, because of the excitement. Because that, to me, was a disclosure of a sort.
Well, it's confirmation.
Right. And that was years before the Nimitz incident, by the way, many years. And then when the Nimitz incident occurred, Fravor talks about this bubbling thing underneath a tic-tac type object on the surface up in the air. Could that bubbling thing have been a methane hydrate field releasing some methane? Yes, it could have. Or could that bubbling thing have been a USO? Something similar to what was seen by the submarine crew. And the answer is yes, it could have.
Yeah, and that's not new.
Right.
Mark, historically, those things have been seen.
Right.
We really don't know who builds them or what their purpose is. That is an issue, and that's actually, look, I don't fault the military for not telling us everything, because I don't think they know everything, and even if they did, how could they explain something like that to us without causing some issues in society?
Yeah, and that's true. And the other question I had, and I want to put this out to everybody, my understanding of the Space Force might be different from yours. My understanding of diving into ostensibly what, on face value, what the Space Force is for, is to monitor the space junk and satellites in orbit to make sure that there are no collisions. We're going to be in space a lot more, especially with manned missions to the moon, manned missions to Mars potentially. So we're going to be putting humans in harm's way of this space junk. And the Space Force's ostensive mission was to make sure that human beings never have a craft that gets hit by wayward space junk. That was my original thought. In fact, I had a lot of people call me when they were talking about people to head it up and said, you should apply for that job. You should apply for that job. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's what I want. I want to work for a rogue administration on a project that might pay well for 1 year, and then after that, I will be summarily executed and thrown out. Because after a couple years, whatever. So I did not want to even apply for that job, nor did I feel I had the credentials to apply for that job. So, but that's what I understood the Space Force to be. So, in particular, I'd like to know what Commander has, what he thinks about this, and Robert, your thoughts, as well as Don's and Amanda's, of course. And of course, Chris
Especially
is back
Amanda.
there. Well, only Amanda, actually, okay, to be honest. And Chris, of course, is sitting there back there, saying, "Hey, they want to talk to me. Yes, I want to talk to you. So what's the deal?"
Well,
right,
I'll let
Chris.
Amanda go first.
All right, Amanda, I unmute.
No, I'm good.
You sound great.
Okay. Well, then somebody in the audience needs to call in too.
Well, here's the deal. I think with the Space Force, and Mark, I think you're kind of right. But the question is, why couldn't the Air Force just do exactly what you just said? They had the capability, they had the manpower, they had everything. There's got to be a little bit more.
The manpower to do what they're supposed to be doing right now. How do you come up with that conclusion, Chris?
What do you mean? How did I come up? They haven't been
able to field a tanker in almost 15 years of trying to put an aerial tanker into the air, and you're telling me that the Air Force is ready to run space programs of this nature?
Why did they transfer? Why did they transfer all these Air Force people over to the Space Force? They just transferred what, 6,000?
Is a bureaucratic monster that is not going to let other services get that up. This is why they're saying Space Force is the Marine Corps to the Air Force. That's what they're trying to say. This is a bureaucratic.
I didn't hear that one, but
No,
I can tell you this though. Why are they then transferring Marines? They're going to be transferring Marines to the Space Force. They said in a couple of years they're going to be transferring sailors and Marines to the Air Force. So
right. It's the same model that SOCOM and the Joint Special Operations Command works on. And that's the model they should have used. And the Air Force is not going to let that happen until they get their hooks into it and they set it up under their program guidelines. That's why.
It may be part of transformation.
Is why can't, if that was just the reason why they wanted this Space Force to make sure that people were safe and all this other stuff, I agree with Don. Not only has this thing been weaponized, but they're going to make it more weaponized. This is a Space Force is going to be used as a counterpuncher or a puncher. And this is something that they are going to really start dealing with, whether it's going to be good or bad. Remember one thing. If you got something that's good and you're going to use it for good, there will always be evil people that will turn it around and try to make their own or try to turn around to make it evil.
Oh, but I won't do that right away, Chris. I won't do that right away.
What's that?
I won't do that right away.
Well, I'm not saying
that's a joke.
They won't do it right away, but I think they will eventually do it. And I think Commander has a legitimate, question that the Air Force, will want to get their hooks into it and try to make it a division of that. But I'm getting at is that I think there's a bigger mission that what they're trying to do with this Space Force that we realize.
I'm sure there's more to it. There's more to any program. There's a black component to a number of programs out there, and I've been part of programs that on the surface seem like they're going to do one thing, in particular submarine-launched unmanned aerial vehicles. But then later on, it turns out the mission was, morphed, if you will, to something different.
Sure.
And that happens all the time. And it has to do with budgets. It has to do with personnel. It has to do with capability and technology. All of those things have to align. And it's really, and Commander will probably agree, that these are the kinds of things that, what's written on paper for what the program's going to do may not be what the program ends up being. And
absolutely correct.
And that's been my experience too, for what part I've had. I'm not a career guy in the military by any means.
First of all, everyone hides their budget money.
Yes, that's exactly. There you go.
Oh, of course.
That's right. Budgets are the hardest thing to get an answer to.
I'll simply put this question to you to answer your question. If the case in point, as you said, why isn't the Air Force just doing this? Then why isn't the Air Force flying all the airplanes in the Department of Defense? Why isn't every Navy airplane, Marine Corps airplane, Army aircraft, Coast Guard aircraft, why don't they all belong to the Air Force? The Air Force has tried, but there's a reason why they don't allow the Air Force to control every aerial vehicle in the force structure.
Well, I think that every service wants their own kingdom. And they're going to
parts of their own kingdom, but they don't get the job done. That's the bottom line that this comes down to. The Marines do not want to have non-naval trained people supporting them. The Army uses helicopters to support its troops because they are not getting the close air support that the way they want it, the way they need to have it come down, or it did. It's probably much better than it ever was before. my point that I'm trying to make to you on this is the political grab bag that goes on with these programs is the same thing that Libertas was talking about in the chat room. We put up a bill for the coronavirus response, and it is earmarked with BS so far and so wide that it's shameful. We have senators that have been caught red-handed, short-selling. Nary a word is really being said about any of this stuff that goes on. So it doesn't surprise me that the Space Force, as we see it right now and what's going on, this is another thing that leads back to what I think Robert had clearly put out that is very enlightening. Trump took this away from all of them when he signed this into force, because the programs and the way it was going to be done under black programs, and it was going to continue to be part and parceled out to different parts of the services, and primarily through DoD managed programs in the dark, not in the public.
Yeah, and serving, I don't think it would have been serving a national interest.
Absolutely not.
At least not the capacity that I would see. I perceive it as going under this particular administration or this president and all those who support him. And, honestly, these Trump rallies are amazing. I know it's always hype whenever you get any politician into an arena, but my God, the level of enthusiasm and there's like, I don't know. I've never seen that. I'm 60 years old now. I've never seen that in any politician that was really a man of the people, even though he's wealthy. He seems more like a regular person than the political class. And I think people resonate with that. I mean, most people. Some people, it absolutely just, and here's the other thing he was the first person I've ever seen where witches' covens were openly saying that they were casting spells against him. Or at least that's what the media was reporting.
Yeah,
that is like, hold on a second. So maybe he's not the lesser of two evils. What would happen if to our system of that corrupt system, suddenly somebody comes in and actually tries to do something good? Well, then he would be attacked by the dark side, in my opinion. It looks like there's an AI bot trying to call us, Bill. This always happens on my show. It's really weird where I'm looking at the board, and that's all we get is it's like it's an error code. Something is definitely monitoring this show or trying to it's not trying to call. It always comes in on line one, and
I get the same thing.
I get the same thing too.
It's okay, so it's a ghost in the system?
Yeah, it's not just you.
What is it, Mark? Your side?
I don't know. I don't know either, because I'm not an expert in the phone systems.
Okay,
but
I didn't think that I'm singled out. A glitch in the system. Okay, yeah, that's something straight out of the Matrix.
It's a ghost in the machine. Just ask the police.
Yeah, I'm not fond of AI, and it's not fond of me, so I guess we just have to live with it. Anyway,
like a song.
I'll put out the phone number again. I think most people know it by now. It's 855-472-5483. That's 855-472-5483 or 85 KGRA Live, and that's brought to us by the Paranormal Radio app. So thank you for that. I hope somebody does take advantage of it and join the conversation. Always welcome to do so. All right, so I'm not sure where we go from here. We've already talked about space and
well, we talked about the Space Force.
Space Force, yeah. I'm trying to think where we go from here. Well, obviously the moon and Mars. Is it to expand on this? I guess this particular perspective. I'll let you go first, Mark. Is it really feasible for us to colonize Mars at any time soon, or any time at all?
Certainly not now, and there's a lot of reasons why people can argue we'll never get to Mars. But I do think that there's some major hurdles that have to be overcome. And oddly enough, the spacecraft can probably make it to Mars. But getting to the surface and getting off the surface is the big hurdle. We don't have landers anymore. We'll orbit Mars with people for sure. But we won't land on Mars without the proper retooling. The lunar modules were landing on a basically just a glorious asteroid that was about 2,000 miles across with 1/6 of our gravity. I mean, the wall of the lunar module you could poke through with a pencil. It was very thin. So it was really just a container to hold air for the astronauts, right? So we need to do more than that, though, when we go to Mars. We need a substantial craft because we have a real atmosphere at Mars. Yes, it's tiny compared to the Earth's, okay? But it's enough that we will have a re-entry heat problem. We will have parachutes that can help us get to the surface. But when we get there, what are we going to do? You know, we have to move around. We have to have some kind of habitat. If you're going that far, you better have a habitat. You also need a way to make your own oxygen. You have to have a way to make your own water. So we have a lot to do. You know, the TV series Mars was actually really, really good because it covered all those things in a very realistic way based on science. And so I really liked that very much. And they had a greenhouse that they actually would put grow lights in and actually grow food as well. Because, you know, toothpaste tube pork chops are just going to go for so far, and then you're going to be done, you know.
Right.
So, and the other thing is, when you put a human being who's used to one Earth gravity, one Earth, you know, well, minus 9.8 meters per second squared, you have the acceleration due to gravity on Earth. So you go out to Mars now, and now you're a fraction of the Earth's gravity. You're going to be able to jump a little higher, but you're also going to be more unstable. You're going to find out that your head weighs something. Well, look at that. My head pulls my body over when I go to run and jump.
Well, hold that thought, Mark. I want to take this call. Laura, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Hi.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for taking my call. And really, I'm really enjoying the conversation, gentlemen. It's really right and right to the point. But I have a thought, and I'm hoping you can comment on it. What are your thoughts about the coronavirus as a launch of World War III?
Okay, for what? But okay, for what purpose? Do you have any thoughts on it?
To undermine the world's stability, economic market, etc., the health, etc. I'd really, you know, because here's the thing: nobody's going to nuke us anymore. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
This is the only way they can do it. And I'm just wondering what the commander has to say and Mark has to say about that.
And Amanda. Okay.
Is she there?
Yeah.
I'm here. I was just wondering who did you think was going to attack who? If it was World War III, who would attack who? Who would make the first move?
I've heard some information recently about a document that was written from a Chinese party about that same language, meaning that that's the way they would undermine the U.S. is through bioweapon.
Yeah, you're correct on that. It's definitely a Chinese checker move to do this way. So, Lauren, in my opinion, yes, this is what this is. And it's because we have a president, as stated by Decker so eloquently, that's not playing by the established rules of the ruling class, and is kind of kicking over a lot of the tables in the temple on this. And yeah, I think that's what we're facing, because there's enough room there to say that, well, it's just nature taking its course. These things have happened before, but the side effects that are going on, the near hysteria that is accompanying this, is what is so telling and so interesting to me out of this, because it has rocked the market the way it did. It has brought so many things to the knee, to everyone's knees.
And it's quite true. And look at the Silk Road. China needs to expand, but they're kind of landlocked. So Iran, Italy, they were all in conjunction with them developing that. You know, they've destroyed their own country. They've used up their natural resources. Their pollution is so bad. They need to expand and broaden. they can't get anywhere unless the U.S. is undermined in some way.
I think it's a strong point that you make. I think that their natural resources and their ability to continue to exploit their people, I think there's some other demographics there with the lack of the ability for them to grow, physically grow, because of their one-child policy has resulted in a very high male population. So there's a lot of demands there. And the way they have structured and played the game with it. There's one factor to all of this, and I've talked about this with a number of folks offline, some tonight, in fact. The number one thing that keeps a lot of things in check for people that have designs or groups that have designs on their particular system ruling the globe is that the U.S. dollar remains the reserve currency. And when you shake that down, it allows other currencies to come through. In the case of the PRC, the way that they manipulate how they report their currency has always been an issue. They set values for it. And I'm not very pleased with what we do with the way we, will print money and put in excessive physically print money to try to float the system up. But this is what's happening. This is why world banks are failing. And I think another thing that needs to be factored into this, and I know we don't really get into it as a political show, but as a geopolitical event, you have a sitting president and vice president who are with a secretary of the Treasury that is constantly saying, look, we don't want the bailouts to go to the corporations or that level. We need this to go to the lowest common denominator. Secretary of Treasury today came out and said that it absolutely has to go to the lowest income people first if this is going to work. That is not the playbook that has gone on for a number of years. And I think that is very threatening to those that see themselves as their self-appointed betters to the rest of us. And that is why the subjects of what we talk about in the UFO world and those others continue to be cast aside. And we're not going to get a straight answer.
Well, and here's the bigger picture. Is this a precursor, or is this a look of what's going to happen to us if, in fact, ET is disclosed?
What do you mean?
What are your thoughts on that? For example, with the virus and, go to your local grocery store. Even here where I am, people are panicked. And it's unfortunate, but I wonder, the whole concept or the idea of disclosure. Is this a sample of what would happen?
I don't think you're going to see disclosure now. I think the tables have turned. I think they'll postpone it, put it in the back shelf right now. Just look at what's going on with this. Like I said before, if they turn around and they try to do disclosure now, there'll be riots in the street. Like I said, there'll be a big horde on aluminum foil. As crazy as that sounds, you watch.
No,
things like that would happen.
That's a very useful metaphor that you got there, Chris. I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, but there's no place to hide from something like that. You can't shelter in place or social distance from extraterrestrials.
You hide stuff in plain sight all the time. It can be done, but they're just going to put it on the back burner right now, Robert. Yeah. They have to. This coronavirus thing is crazy, and it's weaponized, it's manipulated, and we know it. But the American people, they're worried about where their next meal is going to come from. Some people, they're worried about how they're going to feed their kids. They can give a rat's what if it's weaponized or what they're manipulating for.
Yeah,
they're worried about how they're going to feed their kids tomorrow.
I don't necessarily believe it's weaponized, and I know I differ from some of you on that. I think that we just got caught with a particularly bad flu season, and that's not being naive. That's just saying that I don't think that this is a weaponized flu. I don't think it's a virus. If it was going to be weaponized, then it's really not that good at it.
I think it's actually I think it's just genius the way this thing works. You can walk away and say, nope, there's really no way to do this. You're messing around with something. air transport. You have major international ties with parts of Europe, parts of Asia. Follow that pattern, and you make a really good batch of this stuff, and you let it go, and you get the effect that you want out of it. Because when you don't really care about what happens to your own people, nobody else matters.
Well,
I mean, that's how I come up with it, Mark. Do I think that this was a linear weapon that was developed? Not so much, but it's obvious to me that they had definitely been working with this and trying to figure out how we were going to get to where we are right now. And I think that's why we find it. Because if that was the case, they never would have lied and held the information as long as they did. Never.
Well, look where we were 1 month ago economically. We were sitting on top of the pile. Now, the stock market has totally, for all intents and purposes, it's collapsed. Now, it's sitting in the basement. Now, if this goes on for a few weeks, hey, I mean, there are literally going to be millions of people out of work, basically on the breadline. There are businesses that are going bankrupt. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah,
so
that
somebody
part of it is really deadly.
Somebody sure as hell better get on top of this immediately.
Well,
and I happen to think our POTUS is the guy right now, the right guy in the right place.
Does everybody agree that China wants to be the next leader of the world? I mean, that's what's being touted right now. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. And I agree with the caller. I don't think you're going to see nuclear bombs go flying back and forth and stuff. I think that era is kind of go. But look at this economic collapse like Don brought up. What a perfect way to try to destroy a nation. And it's working.
But, Chris,
it's not working, though.
I would
It's
not totally
destroying us.
rule out a nuclear strike. Not from a state actor, but from a terrorist group.
Yeah.
That's always been a possibility. Go
Mark,
ahead, Laura.
you don't think it's hurting us right now?
No, I think it.
Hang on, Mark. Hang on. Laura, go ahead. What is it?
Yeah, okay. Well, another question I have is, now here's the thought. Think about this. Is the unsettling nature of the ET disclosure scenario that we've had or staged to date driving this panic? You see what I mean? Is the idea or the unsettling idea of an enormous change that may occur because of ET disclosure driving this panic? Because it caught like a bonfire. I mean, like, what do they call those kind of fires that just whoosh?
Wildfire?
Right up. Wildfire, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Flash over.
What do you think of that? Because that's what I'm thinking. That could be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, but order out of chaos seems to be the motto when it comes to these matters, and unfortunately, it works far too well. In some regard, I think it's unsustainable. In fact, I'm sure it is, and they can try all they want. I just don't see this. I don't think they're going to get what they want. Even if they do, it's not going to last very long. It'll collapse on itself and the weight of itself. It's unstable. So, was there anything else?
I threw an article into the chat room. It's worth it. I'll put it in tomorrow night as well.
Okay.
And it talks about the coronavirus, and it comes from an interesting source paper that I read quite a bit. So it may be worth taking the time. And it's the greatgameindia.com site if folks are interested. Very good piece.
Sounds good. Was there anything else, Laura?
No, that was it. Thanks a lot. Really interesting program.
Appreciate the call. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Our pleasure.
Good night.
See you.
And just so you know,
okay.
I think the reason that Laura was able to hear all this is because she's in my stream chat, and that I think is where she was listening to it from. So those wonderful questions came from one of my wonderful listeners in the stream.
Name dropper, Mark.
Wow.
Name dropper.
I have known Laura for a long time.
Oh, okay, that's what's going on.
But she didn't call because of me, because obviously I didn't get a chance to really talk. So it's okay. I talk enough.
Come on.
I talk enough. It's fine.
Get some salve for those hurt feelings.
This is great radio, and I'm totally okay with it. This is great radio.
You're.
Hey,
I
but
don't
you
think-
know, talking about the disclosure thing,
Yeah.
right now, I don't think there could be a worse time if that were to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be eclipsed by all this other nonsense, like you said, or somebody said. Was it Chris? Somebody saying, "Who gives a crap if you're trying to feed your family? You don't care about that." I've always said, "Well, who cares about extraterrestrials anyway? Really, at the end of the day, they're not. It doesn't. It's not really a game changer for most people. Would just go on with their lives, right?"
I don't know. You know, it was either Michio Kaku, Dr. Michio Kaku, or who the hell's the SETI scientist?
So
Shostak.
that guy,
Shostak, Seth
Shostak.
Shostak.
Yeah, smokestack.
One of them made the statement that if we detected a signal, let's say from, what the hell, 100,000 light years, the other side of the galaxy, which actually wouldn't be 100,000, let's say 60,000 light years, that wouldn't mean a damn thing. I mean, it would be interesting. There'd be a lot of ink expended on that. People would be, 60,000 light years. Well, what's that really mean? Well, it means that 60,000 years ago, they sent a signal. Well, okay. In the scheme of things, well, that's ancient. But if we got a signal from, say, orbiting Jupiter, that is another whole ball of wax. Okay.
Right.
In essence, they're here. Now, what does that mean if we know for sure, certainly, that they're here? Now, today, okay, we've been dealing with this UFO thing for going on a century, actually much, much longer than that. But, people have been seeing things in the sky forever. But the bottom line is overtly, nothing really has happened. It's
true.
obvious that if we're seeing ET right now, he has no intention of invading. He has no intention of overtly interfering. But let's say a new player suddenly shows up in the solar system. Yeah, that's going to mean a hell of a lot to people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Depending on the context. Okay. Well said, Don.
But keep in mind that just because we are alive now, it doesn't mean that this is when aliens will contact us. This process, I do this thing that you guys know about, I think. I put the entire history of the Earth on, guess what? A roll of toilet paper. I do.
What can you get for that now, Mark?
I get probably a lot of money because it's already pre-printed with all the major events on the Earth.
When you think about how much money you have wasted in that demonstration because you don't roll it back up.
Oh, no.
It's just amazing.
We do, and our esteemed producer, Bill, will tell you about the time when he dropped 1 billion years. I had him doing the take-up roll, and he actually dropped it with about 1 billion years worth on it, which is hilarious. He's smiling right now, I can tell. Anyway, if you look at our history, okay, if you remember, Stephen Hawking said we should just kind of hide in the distance. Don't let the aliens know we're here. Let's just keep a low profile.
Too late.
Well, too late, but guess why? It has nothing to do with our radio signals or a noise we make on Earth as humans. It has everything to do with the fact that we had oxygen in our atmosphere at like 2.4 billion years ago. When that happened, that signal, the oxygen in our atmosphere, signaled to anyone who's carbon-based out there in the universe, hey, this is a planet that probably has life. Obviously they have to look at how the oxygen is generated, whether it persists, and of course it did. But oxygen doesn't want to stay in an atmosphere. It wants to bind with everything in the ground. It loves to bind with iron and make rust, right? Iron oxide, Fe2O3. So when you look at that, we don't have the luxury of hiding. We haven't for 2.4 billion years. So what does that mean? It means that our signal, our oxygen signal saying, hello, we're here, has been going out into the universe for 2.4 billion years of our existence.
Right.
And now that means somewhere along the line, there's going to be a species that says, hey, Zork, guess what? We've got a signal here. Holy crowd, Torgon, we got to go there and check it out. And maybe they have the capability to go interstellar. We already know we can, and we're only 5,000 years into our written history if you go back to Sumeria and cuneiform language. All right? And that said, we actually have come quite a long way. We can see how to defeat the light speed barrier of the universe after 5,000 years of written history. Okay? There's civilizations out there perhaps that have 1 million years of behind us and behind them from our level. And so they would see that and then some. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Hold
right.
it there, Mark. I'm sorry
man.
to tell you, we are out of time.
Oh, man. That's fine.
We're going to pick this up tomorrow.
Because I had a hell of a response ready to go, Mark.
Well, save it for tomorrow, Don. I know we're all going to be a little more. I know I'll be sober tomorrow. I'll make sure to drink coffee instead of alcohol. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen.
I was going to drink wine tomorrow.
Okay.
I
That's fine.
think it made a great show with the tequila.
Anyway, I'm just in a deprecative mood. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes another episode of the Unicus Radio Hour on Tequila. And I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I did. Thank you to everybody that participated. And until next time, oh, it's my pleasure. And until next time, may the force be with you.
Clear.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.